Welcome to the fantasy audiobook, Uchiha, starting from Tobirama Jinchuriki. Chapter 81, The Exit of the Valley. The scene of the murder just flashed through Asuma's mind, and he forced himself to hold back the throbbing in his heart. He turned his head and wiped the blood on the chakra knife in his hand, and his stomach twitched slightly. On the side, Nohara Rin's face was already pale compared to Asuma, who looked normal. Only Chingue still had that gentle expression. Muramasa's blade burned away the blood under the burning flames, as if nothing had happened. Tsunade sniffed the bloody smell that filled the mountains and plains, and her heartbeat gradually accelerated, as if she had returned to the battlefield, returned to the hell that had deprived her of everything she cherished. But even with the burden of hemophobia, Tsunade was still responsible. When Chingue and others faced hundreds of bandits, they steadily swept the formation for them from behind to avoid unexpected situations. As long as the blood didn't splash directly onto her body and the blood wasn't too close to her, Tsunade could still control her mind. This was already an improvement from before. Before Tsunade met Chingue, her hemophobia was much more serious than it is now. Although, there was no accident at all. Chingue killed the bandits, like a butterfly on the battlefield, gorgeous and elegant, and the enemies fell one after another while dancing. Asuma and Nohara Rin were very nervous. The two people who had just become genin could fight normally on a battlefield where hundreds of corpses were displayed. Although they could not display their own strength. This is already a very strong psychological quality for the two newcomers. Generally speaking, it is standard to bring genin to see the blood and deal with a dozen bandits at once. Due to Chingue's combat prowess, Tsunade took the bold step of choosing this den with hundreds of bandits in order to simulate the battlefield situation in the most realistic way. The effect will also be significant. After such a baptism, Asuma and Nohara Rin went back to digest, and they were able to establish a psychological defense line to enter the real battlefield. As for Chingue, Tsunade had to lament that among the ninjas she had known in her life, only her second grandfather Senju Tobirama had given her this feeling. He is as gentle as the sun to his own people, as ruthless as a steel knife to his enemies, and his talent is extremely outstanding. Tsunade looked at Chingue's profile and shook her head. It seemed that she had nothing to teach Chingue. The only thing she could do was to temporarily shelter Chingue from the wind and rain so that he could have time to grow up. Tsunade glanced at the expressions of the three people and said slowly, "Do you realize it? This is the fate of ninjas, kill others, and then be careful not to be killed by others. Think carefully. The fear, anger, and even a little excitement when you kill the enemy will all be factors that affect you on the battlefield. Only when you feel calm after killing the enemy can you be considered a qualified ninja." There was a trace of uncontrollable sadness in Tsunade's tone. She was indifferent to the death of her enemies, but what she couldn't forget was the death of those close to her. Asuma and Nohara Rin nodded silently. At this time, a strange male voice suddenly sounded in the valley. "They are really in demand, these bandits. The job I finally found was actually taken over by someone else. Please give me an explanation." Kakuzu, dressed as a homeless ninja, walked along the corpses from the other end of the valley and stopped not far from Chingue and others. When Kakuzu looked at Chingue and the others, he was stunned, and his pupils suddenly shrank. What did he see? The son of the Hokage, a young son of the Hokage wandering wild. There is also an Uchiha brat with a pretty good chakra level, who is most likely an eye-opener. This is a big job among big jobs. Although the cooked bandits flew away, it seems that they have struck gold. In the past few days, as the ninja world had maintained superficial peace for the time being, Kakuzu had not received any big orders from the black market, and his career had entered a low period. But since Shimura Danzo was banned, some orders from the Land of Fire were leaked to the black market, and all these fat and oily commissions were taken over by bold and talented artists, such as in this valley, bandits. Other wandering ninjas may not dare to enter the territory of the Land of Fire to suppress bandits, but Kakuzu is not worried about this. In order to complete the achievements he has set for himself, even the most elite ninjas are just extra money for him. When Kakuzu saw Tsunade, his eyes shrank slightly, but was soon replaced by a smile, and he said in a low voice, "Oh, what a good luck, there is a big fat sheep." Although the information on Tsunade's blood phobia is top secret, there is no possibility of leakage in theory. But since she has not been on a mission in recent years, the ninja world has already raised many suspicions, and analysis in the black market has shown that Tsunade, who was drunk in casinos and taverns, has most likely lost her fighting power. And even if Tsunade was in her prime at this time, Kakuzu didn't think that the so-called Sannin would be his opponent. He had fought against the god of the ninja world and escaped unscathed. When Tsunade saw Kakuzu, her heart trembled suddenly and she murmured to herself, "Immortal ninja Kakuzu, why is he here?" As the top bounty hunter in the ninja world, Kakuzu has his reputation. An uncontrolled, unfettered shadow-level strongman who kills people just for the bounty can be extremely destructive to any village. Tsunade obviously knows about Kakuzu, and even knows that in her current state, she cannot deal with this enemy. Kakuzu, this is a misunderstanding. Tsunade used her eyes to signal the nervous Asuma and Nohara Rin to step back, while trying her best to negotiate in a calm tone. As you can see, I am leading a team to clean up this bandit den, and I have no intention of competing for business with you. Quote. Kakuzu laughed coldly. Why, do you want to give me some compensation? How much can you pay? Tsunade's brows twitched, so domineering. But considering her own condition, Tsunade suppressed her anger and said, okay, please give me a number. Hehehehe, it's exposed. Kakuzu's deep laughter echoed in the valley, which seemed particularly penetrating and depressing. Your negotiation experience is really as immature as a child, Tsunade. There have long been speculations in the black market that you are no longer able to fight like a ninja. Your concession and retreat just now shows that the information is true. Chingue glanced at Tsunade, whose expression changed drastically, and felt happy. This is Tsunade's language proficiency. When pain invaded the original space and time, Nagato, who originally did not want to destroy Konoha, was suddenly angered by Tsunade, allowing all the villagers in Konoha to experience what kind of power an angry Rinnegan can unleash. He is the first person to talk in reverse. I have been in contact with Genbu. Your reputation in Konoha is so bad that I don't want to do business with you. Jiaodu raised 3 fingers. What a good day. A brat from the Hokage family, a brat from the Uchiha family, and a disciple from Hiruzen Sarutobi. If your bodies are taken to the money exchange, my performance in the next 3 years will be up to standard. Nohara Lin, who was beside Chingue, was not taken seriously by Kakuzu. Chingue looked at Jiaodu, and the corners of his mouth curled up in a vague way. If this situation continues, it seems that a famous scene will happen. He thought of the scene where Senju Tobirama cut off the queen for Sarutobi Hiruzen and others, the only one who could fight, cut off the queen for several other weaklings. Tsunade wanted to say something else and tried to have final negotiations with Kakuzu. But Kakuzu's actions already showed his answer. A ferocious black monster suddenly appeared from the side of the valley and opened its big mouth behind the mask. An extremely violent wind swept across the earth, roaring towards Chingue and the others. Wind release press. It seems that the black monster does not need seals to release ninjutsu. In the case of such a sneak attack, Asuma and Nohara Rin, who were unwell due to killing people, could not react at all and could only watch the hurricane approaching. Chingue squinted at the wind escape, and waited until the hurricane was about to swallow Asuma and Nohara Rin, then he lifted them up and dodged the blow seemingly with difficulty. It seemed that Chingue was also intimidated by Kakuzu's momentum and could only barely react. In Kakuzu in the distance, his eyes were filled with cold murderous intent and greed. With this wind release, Kakuzu didn't even mean to test it, and poured a large amount of chakra into his hand. Even among shadow-level experts, Kakuzu's chakra level, which possesses the earth resentment U, is considered to be above average. The scale of the wind escape he unleashed with all his strength has exceeded Asuma and Nohara Rin's imagination. Why are you so strong? Asuma, who had gone through a level between life and death, cursed angrily and panicked, and clenched his fists feebly. At this moment, Nohara Rin and Asuma's bodies were slashed with dense wounds by the blade-like hurricane. If it weren't for Chingue, Kakuzu's blow just now would have turned the two of them into corpses in the money exchange. And Tsunade couldn't avoid it completely. Some wounds were scratched on her face by Fengdun, and a trace of blood flowed out. After a long period of laziness and inner pressure, Tsunade's fighting status as a ninja has reached rock bottom. Tsunade-sensei, what should we do? Asuma turned to look at Tsunade, but he was stunned. At this moment, Tsunade was even more helpless than he looked. Tsunade was seen trembling all over, her eyes constantly scanning the bright red liquid on her hand, as well as the wounds and blood stains on Asuma and Nohara-rin. Tsunade seemed unable to even stand. The bright red blood awakened the tragic memories in her mind and swallowed her sanity instantly. This was an illusion even more powerful than the Sharingan, which directly shattered Tsunade's defenses. In a daze, Tsunade seemed to see the corpses of Chingue, Asuma and Nohara-rin. In the vision, Chingue was like his younger brother. He once brought her warmth with his smile, but the dead bodies were even covered with internal organs. Empty out. Tsunade's thinking was no longer under control. She was even thinking that if Chingue fell into Kakuzu's hands, he would never be able to get his whole body. An Uchiha is full of treasures, and every device can be sold at a high price at the gold exchange, especially the pair of Sharingan eyes, which have a price but no market. How could Kakuzu let Chingue go? But the more she thought about it, the more severe Tsunade's hemophobia became, so much so that her whole body began to tremble and she couldn't even stand still. Kakuzu looked at Tsunade's reaction in surprise, as if he had seen a large number of gold coins waving to him. He originally thought that Tsunade could barely resist for a few moments, but looking at it this way, she was even worse than the two brats Asuma and Nohara-rin. At least, these two people can still hold the kunai in their hands. Tsunade-sensei, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Asuma looked at Tsunade in panic, instantly falling into panic. Tsunade, who is currently the strongest fighter, why did she suddenly become like this? If that's the case, wouldn't it be the end? In Asuma's heart, it was true that Chingue was an unparalleled genius, but Kakuzu sounded like a ninja at the same level as Tsunade, and even vaguely a level higher. The Feng done just now was underestimated to describe it as overwhelming. How could Chingue be able to deal with it? Kakuzu watched the panicked Tsunade class with cold eyes, and coldly seized this best opportunity. Fire release 2Ku. Fires all over the sky burned through the mountain walls, and the endless flames roared over. The kunai in Asuma's hand could no longer be held tightly at this moment. The kunai fell to the ground with a crisp sound, and his heart sank to the bottom. Today, he not only saw what a cruel battlefield is like, but he also saw in advance how powerful a shadow-level powerhouse can be when he takes it seriously. Asuma was stunned, Nohara-rin was helpless, and Tsunade was deeply immersed in fear. The three of them seemed to have given up, and just watched the fire getting closer. Chingue looked at the scene calmly and stepped forward. Water release water formation wall. The water formation wall and the fire collided fiercely, and thick mist stirred in the air. Chingue. Asuma shouted Chingue's name in surprise, looking at the figure standing in front of him. His body that was unable to move due to nervousness seemed to wake up at this moment. Chingue ignored Asuma and quickly formed the seal, water escape, hidden mist technique. In an instant, thick fog covered the valley, leaving only a vast expanse of white mist. Run, Asuma. Chingue turned around suddenly, the red light of the Sharingan looming in the mist, and his tone was extremely serious. The enemy's chakra is extremely powerful, this is not an opponent we can deal with. Immediately, Chingue quickly picked up the trembling Tsunade from the ground with a quick step, and said in a deep voice, the Kurigakur technique can only delay him for a moment, we have to prepare to escape. Cheer up, you and Lin run away first, I'll be responsible for breaking up your rear. Asuma stared at Chingue blankly, as if he had lost his mind. The same was true for Nohara-rin. She couldn't adapt to this short-term change for a while. For the two genin, the first battle out of the village and encountering a cage-level enemy filled with murderous intent was a bit too exciting. Even Naruto and Sasuke, who have the halo of protagonists, have a strong man Kakashi who can fight to help them. The enemy they face is Zabuza, an elite jonin, not a cage-level monster like Kakuzu. What are you waiting for, waiting to die? Chingue rarely spoke harsh words. We can't carry teacher Tsunade on our backs, and we can't stop the enemies in front of us. Every moment of hesitation will reduce the team's vitality. Run quickly. We'll meet in the pine forest where we came from later. Finally, under Chingue's scolding, Asuma and Nohara-rin started to move, desperately driving their stiff bodies, and ran towards the outside of the valley. As for Tsunade, who was in Ching Shui's arms, her mind seemed to be slowly awakening in the strong arms. The frequency of body tremors was gradually weakening, but she still could not return to her normal state. Feelings of powerlessness and shame flooded into Tsunade's heart. She had just wanted to protect this talented student, but in the blink of an eye she had become a burden. Wind release press. The terrifying hurricane struck again, and the fog in the valley dissipated in an instant under the blow of the strong wind. Kakuzu's pair of dark green eyes shone with a dark light, staring at Ching Shui like a vulture, and laughed ferociously. Kid, you, Tsunade, and that brat of the Hokage family can't escape. Your combined value is about 100 million taels. I will not allow you to escape. Kakuzu stretched out his hand suddenly, and his wrist was like a cannonball blasting towards Ching Shui. With the blessing of earth resentment every part of Kakuzu's body seems to be independent and can be struck out at will. Ching Shui raised his hands and put Tsunade on his shoulders. The Magatama of his Sharingan flashed and he accurately avoided the cannonball-like punch. At this moment, Muramasa revealed his blade and slashed accurately. Break the black line connecting the fist. Kakuzu looked at the three Magatama spinning in Ching Shui's eyes and was slightly startled. 3 Magatama Uchiha, but immediately, intense excitement surged into Kakuzu's heart. If Ching Shui had revealed a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan, then Kakuzu would have considered himself unlucky today and started a fight with the Uchiha lunatic who had activated the Mangekyo. The outcome was hard to say. If the Uchiha clan's kaleidoscope is used up, then even ordinary friction may bring out their anger. It is very likely that they will summon Susanoo even if they are blind, just to kill the enemy in front of them. But if it were just 3 Magatama, Kakuzu would be unafraid, and instead feel that the necessity of hunting Ching Shui has increased again. A pair of 3 Magatama Sharingan eyes, how much do they cost? This is a valuable thing on the black market, even more valuable than the head of Asuma, the son of the Hokage. Ching Shui glanced at Kakuzu coldly, and his pupil power was released towards him at this moment. Kakuzu snorted coldly, formed a seal in his hand, and the black threads in his body surged, conducting the chakra in his body in an extremely chaotic manner. For a monster with a physique like his, the mechanism of illusion that interferes with the flow of chakra is ineffective against him. Unless the power of the eyes or the level of the illusion caster is much higher than him. But what Ling Zhao didn't expect was that Ching Shui just made a feint attack gesture and did not release the pupil technique. Instead, he turned around and ran away with Tsunade on his back. Even though he was holding someone in his arms, Ching Shui's figure was still like a ghost, and his speed was astonishingly outrageous. Cunning little devil, Kakuzu cursed angrily, chakra condensed on the soles of his feet, and he fiercely chased after him. But on the way of his pursuit, Ching Shui would release mist from time to time, delaying his steps. Kakuzu became angrier and calmer. If this brat wants to escape with Tsunade and runs to the center of the land of fire, I might not be able to catch up with him. Kakuzu used wind release to blow away the mist in front of his eyes again, and sneered. But the remaining 2 brats are incompetent, and one of them is the son of the Hokage. I don't believe that an Uchiha dares to abandon the Hokage's child and return to the village. Then I might as well kill him. Kakuzu, who had been betrayed by the senior officials of Tokigakure, had a deep understanding of what the senior officials of these hidden villages looked like. Maybe some are kind, some are vicious, and some look ordinary, but when their interests are touched, their evil hands are many times more vicious than that of a bounty hunter like him. Although Ching Shui objectively had the ability to escape, in the eyes of Kakuzu, an old gangster, Asuma was like a chain, tightly tying him down and causing him to lose the chance of survival. Unless Ching Shui decided to become a traitor and cut off contact with his family and village. But in Kakuzu's opinion, Ching Shui, who could come out and cut off the back, couldn't do such a thing. Thinking of this, Kakuzu relaxed his mind, located Ching Shui's position, and chased after him at an even speed. So what if Ching Shui runs faster? He will eventually meet up with Asuma and Nohara Rin, and by then, Kakuzu will not give Ching Shui a chance to escape. Among the pine forests, Asuma and Nohara Rin were breathing heavily. Their nervousness and running had consumed their physical strength. Sweat mixed with blood dripped down their faces, making them look extremely embarrassed. Before they could rest for a while in the pine forest, Ching Shui rushed over with Tsunade in his arms, frowned, and whispered softly, Trouble, the enemy is faster than I thought. At this speed, we can't get rid of the enemy. Tsunade moved in Ching Shui's arms, patted Ching Shui's arm gently, and signaled her to put her down. Ching Shui is right. The enemy is Kakuzu, the strongest bounty hunter in the ninja world. He is known as the immortal ninja. It is said that he has the strength of a village's shadow. He has lived from the Warring States period to the present. He is extremely powerful and mysterious. The ninja. Tsunade seemed to have calmed down a bit, pursed her lips and said in a deep voice, Asuma, Lin, although your speed is considered to be top-notch among genin, it is still too slow to deal with such an enemy. Ching Shui, you let Asuma and Lin run away first. I'll try to summon slugs to resist him. Tsunade stood up tremblingly, but in Ching Shui's Sharingan eyes, the chakra in her body was extremely disordered, and she did not have the conditions to use her normal power. Strange power requires precise chakra control. And even if he can channel the slug, Kakuzu only needs to find a way to get the blood in front of Tsunade, and the battle will be over. Tsunade actually understands this truth. But what can be done? No matter how talented Ching Shui is, he can't resist an old monster with a shadow level. Needless to say, Asuma and Nohara Rin were pure burdens. Nohara Rin looked at Tsunade worriedly. As a medical ninja, she already understood that Tsunade suffered from a serious mental illness and did not support her fighting at all. Asuma also looked at Tsunade worriedly. Tsunade forced a smile and was about to say something to the frowning Ching Shui, but her pupils suddenly dilated. I saw Ching Shui slowly cutting his fingers with Muramasa and placing the red fingers in front of Tsunade. Staring at the blood red, Tsunade suffocated again, and her whole body trembled. Asuma stared at Ching Shui dumbfounded, and Nohara Rin also looked shocked. What are you doing? Ching Shui shook his head slowly and sighed deeply. In this state, if Tsunade-sensei is allowed to fight against that Kakuzu, isn't it asking her to die? Asuma was confused for a moment, and after he understood, he nodded heavily. What Ching Shui said is right, but there is still an urgent problem that needs to be solved. What should we do in this situation now? Tsunade couldn't fight, Ching Shui couldn't fight Kakuzu, he and Nohara Rin were two burdens. Is it possible to wait for death like this? Right now. At the edge of the pine forest, fires began to burn all over the sky, and the fire seemed to ignite the dark clouds in the sky. Asuma's pupils shrank suddenly, and she murmured, he's coming after him, and he's starting to set fire to the forest. Ching Shui, on the other hand, laughed, as if he had figured out something, and called everyone to come closer, and said slowly. The current situation is very simple. Asuma, Lin, and Tsunade-sensei, one of us must stay as the bait to delay as much time as possible for the others. Otherwise, we will all die here. So, now there is only one last question left, who will be this person? Ching Shui glanced at his companions present. Nohara Rin was at a loss, let alone whether he had the courage, but what could she do? The same is true for Asuma. He is willing to cut off his wife for Ching Shui, but the question is, will his decision to cut off his wife be meaningful and valuable? Tsunade also fell silent. The blood on Ching Shui's fingers could defeat her fighting spirit. Asuma, Lin, Tsunade-sensei, this choice can only be me, there is no need to argue. Ching Shui even laughed and said slowly, today, I will practice the will of fire. Asuma hurriedly shouted, Ching Shui, this is too dangerous, there must be another way. And when Ching Shui's gaze swept over, Asuma's voice stopped abruptly. What solution can he think of? Are you going to stay with Ching Shui? This is certainly possible. However, when Asuma and Ching Shui's clear eyes met, his palms trembled slightly, and the saliva in his mouth secreted rapidly, as thick as glue, sealing his lips and teeth. Unable to speak, Asuma roared in his heart, tell me and stay with Ching Shui. But I just can't say it. Asuma's mind was in a mess, hating his own cowardice, when he saw Ching Shui had already stood up. Asuma looked up at Ching Shui, blankly looking at his resolute and handsome profile, and was stunned for a moment. No, Ching Shui, I want to stay with you. Asuma stood up suddenly, as if he had lost control, and yelled at the top of his lungs. Ching Shui's eyes instantly became stern and he stared at Asuma. Asuma, first look at yourself, and then stay calm and understand yourself. If you act like this, you will only put your companions in crisis. With your current strength and age, you are not in a hurry to do this kind of thing. That moment will always come. Before that, keep your life and remember the agreement you made with me. Ching Shui's words seemed to have an invisible power, instantly freezing Asuma in place. If I can't come back, Asuma, then you must remain dormant and continue to observe, find those ninjas who truly have the will of fire in their hearts, and make yourself and them people who can entrust and build a new era. Asuma's tears burst out, filling his eyes with tears, but he tried his best to open his eyes wide, just to look at Ching Shui's figure. From the laning target Sarutobi Asuma, you gain an unbreakable bond, Asuma. Unbreakable bond, Asuma. Your actions shocked Sarutobi Asuma's heart, and established a unique bond with you in the Naruto world. When he thinks about you, he will be extremely subjective in favor of you. Ching Shui wiped the blood from his fingertips, turned to look at Tsunade, and said with a smile, Tsunade-sensei, you should drink less alcohol and more chicken soup from now on. Take care of your body. If it's convenient, help me take care of Shisui. He is still very young. By the way, please remember to help Asuma, he is the inheritor of the true will of fire. Tsunade remained motionless, staring at Ching Shui, as if she wanted to engrave this scene in her heart. Perceiving that Tsunade has a strong cherishing emotion for the host, she is bound to the target. I sense that Nohara-Lin has a strong cherishing emotion for the host, and bind it as a target. Okay, I've said what I need to say. Ching Shui put away his smile, waved his hand suddenly, and shouted to the members of Tsunade's class, don't even look back, run. Asuma gritted his teeth and stood up. The two women, Nohara-Lin and Tsunade, looked at Ching Shui's back. All three of them seemed to feel empty in their hearts, but Ching Shui's words were in their ears. Haunting, driving them away. Ching Shui has already made a huge sacrifice. If he hesitates and wastes precious opportunities again, it will be a crime worthy of death. The fire in the forest became more and more fierce, and Kakuzu's chakra gradually approached Ching Shui's position at this moment. And Qian Shu Feijian, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke at this moment. Ching Shui, you. Tobirama, I forgot to add the word kid. It sounds a bit uncomfortable to me. Ching Shui slowly pulled out Muramasa, looked at Kakuzu's figure looming in the firelight, and interrupted Senju Tobirama with a smile. Why, wasn't what I just said wrong? You, a will of fire player with a 0 score, are you going to teach me a perfect score? Kionju Tobijian was silent for a moment, but then he laughed. No, you did get full marks today. As a reward, I can lend you my power. No, I don't have to. Ching Shui smiled lightly and rejected Kionju Tobirama's proposal. With a hint of firmness in his teasing tone, he said seriously. I cut off my queen for the will of fire. If I borrowed your power, wouldn't what I just said be a lie? Let me experience what it feels like to actually practice the will of fire that sacrifices for your companions. Even if there is a risk of death, I will admit it. Qian Shu Feijian frowned. He didn't expect Ching Shui to reject his power. Moreover, why did this kid start talking nonsense? What as a mortal is really unlucky? Tobirama, tell me, if I really die, will Tsunade-sensei's hemophobia be cured? Perhaps Asuma's will of fire will burn brightly because of my death, and I will become a good Hokage. Ching Shui teased him casually, but Senju Tobirama's brows were already knitted together, and he thought to himself, Uchiha Izuna, his chakra is affecting Ching Shui. Otherwise, Ching Shui will never refuse my power and get into this useless corner like an Uchiha. The will of fire is flexible. It seems that we need to find an opportunity to teach Ching Shui how to be flexible. At the critical moment, even if this kid doesn't want my power, I will find a way to forcefully instill it in him. After Kakuzu appears, Qian Shu Feijian remained silent, carefully observing Ching Shui's every move during this accident. Only in this moment of crisis can one better see a person's true character. Until now, Ching Shui has made Senju Tobirama extremely satisfied, and the words Ching Shui and Asuma said before parting made the second-generation Hokage, who was indifferent to emotions and anger, smile widely. He started to speak. Who does this kid Ching Shui look like? 100% like him. Look at the calm demeanor, the wise thoughts, the words to teach his companions, and the iron will of fire. Isn't this exactly the same as when he cut off the queen of Sarutobi Hiruzen and Shimura Danzo? Even the words are pretty much the same. The youngest son of the monkey family, the way Chingue talked about him, made Senju Tobirama think of Sarutobi Hiruzen and Shimura Danzo in their youth for a long time. There is courage, but there is also cowardice. However, we cannot ask too much of this young man in such a critical situation. The only regret was that Chingue rejected his power, which made Senju Tobirama feel a little uncomfortable. It's quite strange. If Chingue had used him as a trump card from the beginning and asked for his power when he met Kakuzu, then Senju Tobirama would feel that Chingue's thoughts were impure, and what he said just now might be that he was using his power to bribe him, people's hearts. But after meeting Kakuzu, Chingue never said a word to him. Even when Kionju Tobirama offered to lend him his hand, he still firmly rejected it. This made Senju Tobirama murmur in his heart. Is this because Chingue's will of fire is a little too pure, or is Uchiha Izuna's chakra starting to work? But in short, after Senju Tobirama listened to Chingue's speech, even his own shadow appeared in front of his eyes, and he made a decision in his heart. If Chingue wants to use his power, as long as it does not endanger Konoha, even if he does something a little outrageous, it can be discussed. Even if Chingue is in danger, Kionju Tojian plans to tell him, "You must have this power even if you don't want it." Kakuzu rushed over and stood not far away, looking at Chingue who was carrying Muramasa with a calm expression, and commented coldly, "Kid, you are treated as a poor abandoned child. A son of the Hokage and a disciple of the Hokage. Although you, Uchiha, are a ninja from a wealthy family, you can only serve as their human shield to stop me for a moment. But don't worry, I will help you kill them all and won't let you go on the road alone." A large number of black lines appeared on Kakuzu's body, and chakra condensed rapidly. Thunder released pseudo-darkness. The overwhelming thunder roared in and shattered the pine trees. Chingue's figure was like a ghost, accurately avoiding the thunderous bombardment, carrying Muramasa at an extremely fast speed, and rushed directly towards Kakuzu. Kakuzu stared at the sword in Chingue's hand and sneered, "An Uchiha who is good at close combat." In his opinion, Chingue is a typical Uchiha fighting method, using Sharingan and sword skills to fight the enemy in close quarters, finding the enemy's slack at the slightest moment, and seeking opportunities to make achievements with one sword. But Kakuzu was not afraid. Any physical attack is ineffective against him. I saw that Kakuzu's pair of green eyes did not shy away from Chingue's three Magatama, and the black line controlling the resentment on the ground tumbled to capture Chingue's figure. But Chingue's speed and movement skills cannot be captured by these clumsy black lines. With the blessing of the teleportation technique, Chingue's speed increased even more. Muramasa raised his sharp blade and slashed at Kakuzu at a tricky angle. Kakuzu raised his arms, his whole body turned dark, and he caught Muramasa's blade with his bare hands. Earth release Earth Spear. The hard arm collided with Muramasa, and there was a crisp sound like iron colliding. Physical attacks are ineffective against me, kid. Kakuzu held it with his backhand, trying to catch Muramasa. But Chingue's speed was still a bit faster. He pulled away from the blade in time, and teleported to Kakuzu's back. But Kakuzu didn't react at all. He didn't turn around to face Chingue, but a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. He deliberately exposed his back to Chingue. His earth escape hardening technique can not only harden his arms, but can also cover his whole body. As long as Chingue slashes at his back, when the blade fails to cut into his back and he is frustrated, the masked monster lying in wait will catch Chingue. This battle will then end. Chingue, that guy's technique is called Earth Release and Earth Spear. It's a technique that hardens the whole body. Senju Tobirama said quickly. You can use Thunder Release to break it, or use Hard Vortex Water Blade as an alternative. But Chingue acted as if he hadn't heard, and was still waving at Muramasa Uchiha Izuna. However, this is no ordinary slash. Chingue's arm was wrapped with a large amount of chakra. The strange power of the Thousand Hands clan was released to the extreme at this moment, and Muramasa's blade ignited with fierce flames. But just for a moment, the violent flames compressed sharply and condensed on Muramasa's sword. The cold Muramasa looked like a piece of charred dead wood at this moment, but it contained an extremely terrifying temperature. If Chingue hadn't mastered Uchiha Izuna's ninja sword skills and mastered Uchiha Madara's fire escape skills, it would be really difficult to achieve this level. This is the ultimate expression of mastering fire escape and sword skills. Senju Tobirama's heart sank. Chingue didn't use his water escape, but used Uchiha Izuna's tricks, and even upgraded them. Aha! When Muramasa's blade collided with Kakuzu's back. The body that was originally as hard as a rock was cut open abruptly in the face of the extremely high temperature and the huge force. The severe pain in his back made Kakuzu cry out in agony. Chingue continued to increase his strength coldly, and Muramasa fiercely penetrated Kakuzu's body. Muramasa was like a charred wood lying across Kakuzu's body. The terrifying high temperature burned his flesh and blood, and even the surrounding black lines melted. But Chingue was not greedy for swords. Chakra wrapped around his feet and kicked Kakuzu away from Muramasa's blade. It senses that Kakuzu has strong anger towards the host, and is bound to the target. Chingue chuckled. He knew that Kakuzu was extremely angry at this moment, but Kakuzu was now pretending to be dead, lying quietly on the ground motionless. Are you trying to trick him? Chingue clapped his hands slowly, with a smile on his lips. Do you still want to lie down? If it's any later, my companions will have to go back to the village for dinner. As a bounty hunter, I think you need to improve your professional attitude and focus on efficiency. Coming from the opposing target Kakuzu, you gain Earth Attribute Chakra Mastery. Coming from the opposing target Kakuzu, you gain the Art of Earth Escape and Earth Spear. Kakuzu's body trembled visibly, and countless black lines surged out of his body and exploded out. 5 monsters wearing masks of different colors quickly ran to Kakuzu from a hiding place to protect him. The one wearing an Earth Attribute mask had a crack in the mask halfway through the run and fell down tremblingly. From the remaining 4 monsters, black threads connected the wounds on Kakuzu's back and helped him repair them. Kid, you really pissed me off, that's my precious Earth Escape heart. Kakuzu stood up slowly with an angry face, looking at Chingue's arms and Muramasa with fear. It was not the Thunder Escape ninjutsu that restrained the Earth Escape. Chingue used the combination of Fire Escape and Strength to forcefully break through Kakuzu's extremely confident defense. I don't plan to sell your heart to the black market anymore, I want it. Kakuzu roared angrily, and the remaining 4 monsters surged back into his body. From this moment, the black lines began to riot, shooting out from his joints, mouth, and back. 8 extremely thick black lines were like barriers, swimming outside his body. Among the monster's 4 masks, the Wind and Fire mask emerged on his shoulders, and the Thunder and Water mask covered his left arm. Earthly Resentment U form Full Power Explosion. At this moment, the enraged Kakuzu used all his strength. He wanted to kill Chingue who had destroyed his Earth Escape heart, and he also wanted to seize the time to arrest Tsunade and Asuma who were running further and further away. Every second of delay is equivalent to hundreds of millions of silver being taken one step further away from him. And when this battle comes to a head, because he couldn't bear to see Senju Tobirama's ninjutsu and thoughts poisoning Chingue, Uchiha Madara chose to return to reality and work harder. Today, he still couldn't hold back the loneliness in his heart. He turned on the white Zetsu TV again and searched for there are programs about Chingue. Take a look, just take a look. Uchiha Madara muttered silently in his heart, but frowned. Not in the ninja school, not in the Uchiha clan, not even in Konoha, so where is it? Uchiha Madara sighed. This is because the child has grown up and is ambitious. Uchiha Madara's neat seals are linked to the intelligence network covering the shinobi world covered by white Zetsu, and he meticulously searches. Found it. This white Jusen has sensed Chingue's chakra. And when the scene by Zetsu Sa came into Uchiha Madara's field of vision, the ninja Shira's heart trembled. Chingue was no longer like Senju Tobirama this time. Uchiha Madara saw the scene where Chingue controlled the Sharingan and split Kakuzu's body with extremely exquisite fire escape ninja sword skills. This is to Uchiha and to Izuna. But now the question Uchiha Madara is thinking about is, how did Chingue fight with such a monster? This is really too dangerous. Uchiha Madara stood up suddenly and used his magic to order the white Zetsu in the link. All white Zetsu who are close to the border of the Land of Fire, immediately give up the target of your surveillance and reinforce Chingue at all costs. When necessary, you can reveal your existence. There is only one way. You must ensure Chingue's safety. This moment, near the border of the country of fire, thousands of Baiju were advancing, frantically rushing towards Chingue. Uchiha Madara stared at the scene, and he wanted to rush there himself. Madara Uchiha stared intently at Chingue, who was confronting Kakuzu, comforting himself in his heart. Nearly 1,000 Baiju were considered a very powerful fighting force. Although creatures like White Zetsu generally have low combat IQs, even those with poor appearance have a profile close to that of a special Junin, and are naturally proficient in troublesome tricks such as the Mayfly technique. Some special Baiju also master some wood escape techniques, and their combat effectiveness is even more impressive. Therefore, as long as Baiju's support is timely, even if something unexpected happens in the battle between Chingue and Jiaodu, it will not endanger lives. But even so, Uchiha Madara's eyes while watching the battle were still tangled and serious. This is a very contradictory mentality. Uchiha Madara didn't want to see Chingue injured, and hoped that his new brother would show the proud talents of the Uchiha clan and no longer use the inferior water escape of Senju Tobirama, but he was also vaguely worried that Chingue would grow up too fast. As an old man who is close to 100 years old, Uchiha Madara understands one truth: blood is only the starting point for the emotions between people, and things experienced together are the key to determining the final height of the relationship. It's not that Chingue is the reincarnation of Izuna Chakra and will call him brother when he sees him. The reason why Uchiha Izuna is his favorite brother is partly due to his bloodline, but the most important thing is the experience of two people relying on each other during the Warring States period. If Madara Uchiha wants Chingue to be the spokesperson of the Eye of the Moon project, then he needed to let Chingue into his situation and give Uchiha Madara enough time to get along with Chingue and transform his thinking. But here's the thing: the so-called layout depends on the strategies and force of both sides. In Uchiha Madara's view, although Izuna was the actual leader of the Uchiha clan back then, that was just because he gave in to his younger brother. It did not mean that his intelligence was inferior to that of Izuna. After all, he is the older brother, so he is naturally better than his younger brother Izuna in every aspect. But if we look at it objectively, Uchiha Madara believes that although he is better than Izuna in terms of strategy, he is not much better. Overall, he is indistinguishable. Therefore, in order to get Chingue into the game, force is the key to solving the problem. But Chingue's strength became more and more powerful, and his talent was so good that even Uchiha Madara was surprised. And if he takes action now, after all, Chingue seems to be more enthusiastic than Obito before. But there is a calmness in Chingue's bones, which prevents Uchiha Madara from seeing that Chingue has the potential to become dark. He does not think that Chingue has the kind of people and things that he cannot let go of, and attacking rashly will only make him notice something abnormal. Uchiha Madara sighed. It is indeed much more difficult to win over a younger brother who is very talented and intelligent than a certain Kenji. It is difficult to find a suitable entry point. He could only put aside his worries for the time being and start reading seriously. Kid, no one has been able to piss me off like this for a long time. 8 black lines as thick as a giant python were tumbling in the air, and Kakuzu's eyes were filled with cold murderous intent. Seeing your forehead protector reminds me of some past events. The Konoha ninja I fought against for the first time, the first Hokage of Konoha. After Kakuzu finished speaking, he stared at Chingue's expression, as if trying to find a look of shock in it. Jiaodu has used this move many times. And every time the enemy will be shocked, and more or less flaws will be revealed. But Chingue grinned, slowly took out a shuriken, and threw it towards him, neither light nor heavy. Kakuzu didn't hide, and the circling black line knocked down the shuriken in the air. But he didn't understand why, with Chingue's strength, he would do such a boring test. What is the significance of this shuriken shot? Chingue looked mockingly at Kakuzu, whose eyes revealed confusion, and said slowly, "Is your battle with the first Hokage just like that just now? You hid in the crowd 800 miles away, threw a shuriken at him, and then you boasted that you had fought against him for decades." Kakuzu was stunned for a moment, his forehead jumped, and there was anger in his voice. "You smooth-talking brat. Throwing shurikens from 800 miles away. This is too underestimated." Back then, Kakuzu fought with a wooden clone of Hashirama for several rounds and realized that the situation was not good, so he quickly ran away. Just tell me if this is a fight. Coming from the opposing target Kakuzu, you get thunder release pseudo-darkness. Chingue was a little surprised. He originally just wanted to make a joke, but judging from the rewards, Kakuzu seemed to care about this matter. Kakuzu launched into a violent attack. On his shoulders, two masks symbolizing fire and wind opened their mouths, and brutal flames and bitter hurricanes exploded towards Chingue. Fire borrowed the power of the wind, and the wind died the power of fire. The roaring wind swept across the earth. Composite ninja technique. Flame wind wave. Chingue frowned at the power of this ninjutsu and couldn't help but admire it secretly. Although he made fun of Kakuzu's 800 miles of shuriken, his strength is still impressive. Seasoned combat experience, abundant chakra, comprehensive ninjutsu, and high fault tolerance brought by the immortal body. Chingue quickly formed a seal. Earth release, the art of reflecting fish in the earth. Chingue instantly dived into the soil, and at this moment, the White Jew army hidden underground were stunned. Why did the young master come here again? In an instant, Chingue was like a shark diving into the bottom of the sea, causing Baiju to run around like a small fish, fearing that he would be discovered. But the flash of white in the soil was still captured by Chingue. Chingue's eyes flickered. Why is the old man on the list free to come to the live broadcast room today? Wouldn't it be great if this didn't bring in some gold coins? The violent fire wind swept across the earth, and the temperature below the earth's surface became hotter. Chingue connected his fingers, and the water flow covered his whole body like a shield, isolating the high temperature. Kakuzu scanned the scorched earth, looking for Chingue's figure. Behind him, Chingue slowly emerged from the ground and said softly, "Kakuzu, you'd better use less of your deceiving words. You see, after being exposed, you can't even hit people with ninjutsu. No ninja with any experience will believe your lies. In this ninja world, the only ninja who can fight the first Hokage without dying is Uchiha Madara." Kakuzu turned around suddenly and said coldly, "Sit in the well and look at the sky. Even Uchiha Madara was killed by the first Hokage, but I survived." Chingue shook his head slightly and sighed, "Who can kill Uchiha Madara?" Rather than saying that he lost to Senju Hashirama, it is better to say that he just lost to himself. Kakuzu glanced at Chingue suspiciously. Why did he suddenly start talking to him about Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama? The story of the god of ninja and Shira of the ninja world has become a legendary secret in this land. Only the depressed uncle or old man will mention these two people after drinking too much, showing that he knows a lot. It can be called the ninja world's version of Kimasa. Kakuzu couldn't help but wonder, didn't this kid know that he was bragging? Why are you starting to discuss this seriously? He is truly worthy of being a member of the Uchiha clan. Such a cunning brat is paranoid at heart, so he has to be stubborn. In fact, Chingue's words were not meant for him, but for the old man who could exchange gifts. Chingue just finished speaking. The reward arrived on time. Coming from the laning target Uchiha Madara, you have gained Uchiha Taijutsu Mastery. Uchiha Madara, who was sitting on the white Zetsu TV, listened to Chingue's words, and his heart became clear. Madara Uchiha smiled with great relief. He was indeed the reincarnation of his younger brother. Even though he had never met him, he still looked towards him. Shira in the ninja world will not lose to others, he will only lose to himself. Uchiha Madara felt so comfortable after hearing these words that he didn't even bother to care about Kakuzu's rude words. "Kid, stop talking here about those characters you can't touch in this life." Kakuzu interrupted Chingue's words. Chakra rioted all over his body. The wind, thunder, and fire attribute masks were pulled by the black thread and moved to his left arm. The three masks were arched together to form the muzzle of the cannon. Shape. Earthly resentment. Final shot. Hurricane, fire, and thunder merged into one, and the three extremely powerful chakras were mixed into a high-level compound ninjutsu. The terrifying light waves roared towards Chingue in an instant, destroying all obstacles in front of them. Kakuzu stared intently at Chingue's figure, controlling the trajectory of the light waves. This time, if Chingue dives into the earth to escape, Kakuzu plans to flatten the surface. Fighting Chingue took him so much time that Kakuzu no longer had confidence in whether he could catch Tsunade and the others. Therefore, the only prey he can capture is Chingue, a valuable Uchiha who also cost him 100 million taels. Kakuzu was not stingy with his chakra at all, pushing the power and speed of the beam to the limit. Qing Shui, I'll lend you my power. This technique is extremely powerful, and you can't avoid it with the teleportation technique. Hyunju Tojian said quickly. I know, Tobirama, but I don't need your power. Qing Shui took a deep breath and breathed out the raging fire. Fire escape, the great fire extinguishes. Hyunju Tobirama's pupils shrank suddenly. He was ready to forcefully transfer power to Qing Shui. It is true that Qing Shui is a genius, but for Kakuzu, who possesses the Earth Resentment U secret technique and has 4 hearts, using single attribute chakra to fight against a 3 attribute compound ninjutsu, no matter from the chakra structure or magnitude of the technique, say, there is no possibility of winning. Seeing this scene, Madara Uchiha gave an order to Baiju in a deep voice, listen to my order and prepare to rescue Qing Shui. The beam quickly overwhelmed the flames, but still delayed Qing Shui for a while. Qing Shui took advantage of this opportunity and quickly rushed towards Kakuzu. Kakuzu laughed ferociously and thought to himself, you idiot kid who has lost his mind dares to charge at me. Kakuzu continued to condense the beam and blasted it violently towards Qing Shui. But Qing Shui still repeated the previous coping methods, continuing to release the fire escape to gain space for himself to move forward. During these pulls, the aftermath of the explosion injured Qing Shui, but the color of the 3 Magatama Sharingan in his eyes became more and more coquettish, like blood. During Qing Shui's crazy advance, the bloodline from Uchiha Madara gradually awakened, and a giant beast seemed to awaken inside his body. His chakra and eye power are rising rapidly. Under Kakuzu's surprised gaze, Qing Shui, whose arms were covered with scorch marks, carried Muramasa, who was like a dead tree, and rushed in front of him. He smiled coldly, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Kakuzu still wants to raise his hand to shoot. But at this distance, Qing Shui took advantage of his speed and slashed at his arm before he fired. Jiaodu's eyes narrowed, and he understood why Qing Shui rushed forward so decisively. Kakuzu's fighting style, in fact, can only be regarded as taijutsu for torture. His real fighting system is a fort-style ninja. With the special properties of Earth Resentment U, abundant chakra properties and powerful compound ninjutsu, he can defeat the enemy from a long distance. Qing Shui found that he had no advantage over the waves, so he decisively chose to fight at both close range and angle. In close combat, the advantage of the fort-style ninja is reduced to the minimum. Earth Dun's heart has been broken. In front of Qing Shui's strange power and sharp fire blade, Kakuzu's body has the characteristics of Earth Resentment, and Qing Shui can easily chop it into pieces. The heavy sword slashed down. Qing Shui ignored the black lines of resentment all over the sky and slashed towards Jiaodu's head. Kakuzu grinned ferociously, and the 8 black-lined giant pythons circling around him attacked Qing Shui's heart. Qing Shui did not retreat. The Sharingan in his eyes turned, and his body instantly hardened at this moment. Earth Release Earth Spear. The defensive ninjutsu that Kakuzu relied on could not be released when the Earth Escape mask was broken at this moment. Instead, it was used by Qing Shui first as a capital to fight with him. Kakuzu's pupils shrank suddenly, but Muramasa's blade penetrated his second heart without giving him time to react. But the black thread of earthly resentment also hit Qing Shui's back hard at this moment. Uchiha Madara's heart tightened, Senju Tobijian's eyes narrowed. The thoughts of these 2 sworn enemies were all focused on Qing Shui at the moment, and they were already unable to hold back and show up. On one side, there are thousands of white Zetsu waiting for an opportunity, and you can even come in person. On the other hand, chakra has been prepared for Qing Shui a long time ago, and he can't wait to instill it now. Kakuzu covered his heart in pain. He experienced what it was like to fight Uchiha for the first time in a long time. Qing Shui slowly stood up and twisted his neck, but his body that had been hit hard exploded with even greater vitality. This is the blood of Uchiha, the talent of Uchiha Madara. The fastest way to activate the bloodline of the fighting clan is to fight on the front line of life and death. If you continue to indulge in a stable environment, the bloodthirsty wolf will turn into a guarding dog. The Konoha security department set up by Senju Tobirama for the Uchiha clan contains this truth. You still have 3 hearts, right? Qing Shui wiped the blood on his face and said sternly, stand up and continue fighting me. Senju Tobirama watched this scene in silence. This was really the episode he least wanted to watch. Qing Shui during the period of separation was like a replica of Ko Tobirama. At this moment, Ching Shui's eyes seemed to be red-eyed, and the pure taste of Uchiha was about to overflow. Even Senju Tobirama feels that the current Ching Shui is not like the calm Uchiha Izuna, but has the crazy flavor of Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara's feelings were completely opposite to Senju Tobirama's. Previously, because Ching Shui was suspected of being influenced by Qian Shufajian, he reluctantly stopped paying attention to Ching Shui. But seeing Ching Shui's current appearance, Uchiha Madara smiled very happily. Ching Shui's swift and gorgeous sword skills and body movements gave Madara Uchiha a vague feeling similar to Tobirama Senju. Compared to Izuna, Uchiha Madara felt that Ching Shui's figure looked more like him at the moment. A gorgeous battlefield rose. However, it is normal for a younger brother to resemble an older brother. Uchiha Madara didn't think much and signaled Zetsu to step back first, but the smile on his face seemed to be overflowing, and he almost looked up to the sky and smiled. Kakuzu stood up slowly, spitting out a mouthful of blood, his eyes full of solemnity. Kid, you were deliberately showing weakness to me and letting your companions go first because you wanted to fight me alone, right? You didn't want to expose your strength. Kakuzu took a deep breath, calmed his mind, and a trace of determination flashed in his eyes. You want to use me as your whetstone. That depends on whether you have this ability. The form seems to be reversed. Ching Shui, who was covered in scars from constantly breaking through beam bombardments, carried Muramasa on his shoulders unruly, changing his gentle demeanor before, like a complete Uchiha. It's no use talking anymore, go ahead. Ching Shui's figure was like a ghost, the red light in his eyes stretched into a red line in a quick flash. He accurately avoided the black line python's interceptions again and again, and rushed in front of Kakuzu again. Kakuzu's dark green eyes kept turning, but he just couldn't lock Ching Shui's figure. Why does this kid seem to have multiple personalities? He was calmly dealing with me just now, but now he is so crazy and outrageous. Isn't he afraid of death? Kakuzu cursed angrily in his heart, his eyes flashed with anger, and he became cruel. Kakuzu aimed brazenly at the midpoint between him and Ching Shui, and tried his best to infuse chakra into the beam of light. The explosion radius expanded to the extreme at this moment. Since Ching Shui can't be captured, let's compete to see whose life is tougher. Ching Shui stopped suddenly. The hardening of the earth spear and the defense of water escape instantly strengthened his body, helping him withstand this unavoidable blow. Boom! The smoke cleared. Kakuzu's back surged, and another heart burst. Ching Shui, who was opposite him, was swept in by the explosion and was not having an easy time either. But what is particularly eye-catching is that the red light in Ching Shui's pair of 3 Magatama Sharingan eyes is getting stronger and stronger, and the Magatama is even spinning in excitement. Ching Shui exhaled a long breath, feeling the pain and excitement in his body. He smiled and said to Zhao Du, "You still have 2 hearts, right? Go on, why not continue this fight to the end?" Uchiha Madara looked at this scene, and the shadow of his youth seemed to appear in front of his eyes. Ching Shui. Uchiha Madara murmured softly, the feeling in his heart becoming more and more complicated. He could see that Ching Shui's seemingly reckless fighting had brought the power of the Sharingan to another level. Uchiha Madara's thoughts are like that of an old father. He not only wants to see his son succeed and have a career, but also wants his son to listen to him honestly and not have too many opinions when he returns home. But Qian Shu Tobijian, who was in Ching Shui's body, couldn't bear it any longer and began to forcefully transmit his power to Ching Shui. "Kid, your body has reached its limit. It will be dangerous if you continue like this. Use my power, this is my will of fire. Do you want to reject Konoha's second-generation Hokage?" The power from Thousand Hands Fajian surged toward Ching Shui domineeringly. In order for Ching Shui to use his power, Qian Shu Tobijian very flexibly took out the big hat of the Will of Fire, and put it on Ching Shui's head with a clang. "Aren't you guys perfect in Will of Fire? The Hokage gave it to you, do you want it?" It vividly demonstrated to Ching Shui how to use the Will of Fire flexibly. And the right to interpret the Will of Fire ultimately belongs to the Hokage. Ching Shui's condition is so wrong. While Senju Tobirama was transmitting power to Ching Shui, he was thinking in his heart. Just now Ching Shui's thinking and logic were very clear, and he was also very calm during the battle, but suddenly it was as if the devil possessed him. So, there is only one possibility. Uchiha Izuna, how has your chakra affected this child? Qianshu Feijian's eyes fiercely scanned Qing Shui's body, searching for enemies in the void. In his opinion, when Tobirama Seishui, who was calm and wise during the break, suddenly turned into Koizumi-na or even Uchiha Madara, it could only be because some fool's chakra was exerting force. You saw Qing Shui looking like me, so you were anxious. Senju Tobirama's gaze gradually became fierce, and the red background in his eyes seemed to be much deeper. It's just a portion of the chakra of a defeated enemy. You lost to me in a duel before you were alive. After death, I'm still in a 2-on-1 situation. Don't think about turning around. Qing Shui slowly felt the power between the thousand hands gate, exhaled a long breath, and his eyes flickered. The reason why Qing Shui's fighting style is suddenly so extreme is of course not because of Uchiha Izuna's chakra. He doesn't have this stuff. Of course, it would be better if there were. Qing Shui's real purpose was to try to stimulate Uchiha Madara's bloodline talent. Ever since Qing Shui received this reward, his body has not received any obvious feedback, and it seems as if it does not exist. But while fighting Kakuzu, Qing Shui, who was under pressure, felt the throbbing of excitement in his body. His eye power and chakra were increasing at a speed visible to the naked eye, just like dry grass and trees seeing water and yearning for it. Fight, crazy fight. Therefore, Qing Shui was in his most Uchiha state, and he and Kakuzu had a hearty fight to the death. The effect is also significant. Uchiha Madara's bloodline needs this level of fighting to activate. Qing Shui's second goal was to get Madara Uchiha into the game completely. Uchiha Izuna's sword skills, Uchiha Madara's fire escape technique, the essence of taijutsu, and Qing Shui and Izuna's very similar faces. Now there is another bloodline inspired by Uchiha Madara himself. Old man, just watch and don't say a word. You said I'm not Quan Nai. I said I am Quan Nai. When Uchiha Madara gets entangled, Qing Shui will be safer and have more time to redeem his talents. But Qing Shui's wonderful little Uchiha Madara's performance was only a taijutsu performance, which made him a little unhappy. On this issue, both Senju Tobirama and Uchiha Madara have this characteristic. These former heroes of the ninja world, even if Qing Shui captured the softest or most caring part in their hearts, their subconscious calmness was still there. As they gradually recognized Qing Shui, their threshold for emotional fluctuations also increased. This requires Qing Shui to prepare a more exciting performance, which will make their prepared hearts tremble again. Such as now, Qing Shui just wanted to tell a certain old man who seemed to be stingy that he actually had other elder brothers supporting him. Tobirama, what are you doing? Qing Shui frowned and whispered, can't I defeat this Jiaodu with my own strength? The injuries I suffered in this battle are not just ordinary pain, but I am experiencing the true will of fire. On paper, it's not difficult to get full marks for will of fire, but to maintain this belief in the face of life and death, I still need to continue to train and beat myself up. Senju Tobirama blinked, and for a moment he felt that Qing Shui, who was now possessed by Uchiha's magic, was quite cute. The demonic nature of the Uchiha clan seems to be interesting if used in the right place. Tobirama, let me tell you the truth. Qing Shui sighed, looked at Qianshu Feijian with extremely sincere eyes, and said slowly. Although I cut off the queen for Tsunade-sensei and Asuma, when I really face such a powerful enemy and know that I will be in a life or death crisis, I still have an inexplicable emotion in my heart, and it is not steel-like determination. But I'm thinking, if you broke up with your shadow guard back then, you wouldn't have the same hesitation as me, right? This is the gap between you and me, and it's what I want to make up for. Qianshu Feijian's eyes trembled. He finally understood why Qing Shui rejected his power. Just like Qing Shui said, anyone can say the will of fire, but it is difficult to do it. Especially when facing life and death, it is even more difficult to maintain that golden heart. In a daze, Senju Tobirama remembered that he had conducted a similar test on his students, when being chased by the Golden Horn and Silver Horn troops, who would break the rear. Sarutobi Hiruzen was decisive at that moment, but Shimura Danzo was hesitant and cowardly. Therefore, Senju Tobirama directly ordered Sarutobi Hiruzen to be the Hokage, while Shimura Danzo was completely eliminated. But Qing Shui in front of him did even better than Sarutobi Hiruzen. Because he had actually fought a life and death fight with Kakuzu, but he still felt that his will of fire was not strong enough and wanted to temper it. Qian Shu Feijian laughed heartily and waved his hand domineeringly. I'm telling you, Qing Shui. Even I can't face life and death completely calmly, I still have complicated emotions in my heart. No need to say any more, your will of fire, I, Senju Tobirama, the second Hokage of Konoha, officially tell you that I approve it. Senju Tobirama instantly increased the intensity of power transmission, not caring at all about the stability of his soul, and sent all the power he could, regardless of the consequences. He wanted Qing Shui to understand. In his body, there is not only the violent and out-of-control power of Uchiha Izuna, but also the wise Senju Tobirama supporting him. He is not a lonely possessor of the will of fire. But at this moment, Senju Tobirama felt the power of his soul rising. Comes from the laning target Senju Tobirama's bond. The bond between Thousand Hands Tobirama. When he provides you with power, he can temporarily break his own upper limit without being affected. Qing Shui laughed unconsciously. He had really become Fei Lama, or was he able to explode? Now the system has officially recognized. Qing Shui nodded slowly and took a deep breath. Since you said so, Tobirama, I will take the liberty to accept it. Senju Tobirama snorted habitually, but the next moment he laughed. Go, take my power, and teach that fool who said he fought with my elder brother a lesson. Kakuzu's words not only made Madara Uchiha very unhappy, but also Tobirama Senju. What is your identity and status? Although his strength is pretty good, he is not worthy of saying that he has fought against my eldest brother. You should try the power of my Senju Tobirama first. Kakuzu stared blankly at Qing Shui, whose chakra was surging wildly. He didn't know what was happening for a moment. He was waiting for Qing Shui to continue charging. He had already gritted his teeth and made plans to self-destruct and carry the beam bombardment with Qing Shui, competing to see whose life was tougher. He still has two hearts, but Qing Shui is a mortal body. But Qing Shui just stood there, his chakra level skyrocketing like crazy. Kakuzu was suddenly startled and thought to himself, could it be that this brat has activated the Mangekyo Sharingan? But his eyes locked on Qing Shui's eyes, and he became even more confused. Not only did Qing Shui not activate the kaleidoscope, he also stopped maintaining the 3 Magatama Sharingan. The Magatama strangely disappeared, leaving only a red background. Just like the eyes between the 1,000 hands. What the hell is going on with this kid? It's really a ghost. With Kakuzu's rich combat experience, he couldn't figure out what happened to Qing Shui at this moment, so he muttered to himself. Compared to just now, not only does this kid's chakra level skyrocket, but he also gives me a completely different feeling. It's like two completely opposite people, but he still makes me feel a little familiar. Kakuzu stared at the Uchiha clan emblem on the corner of Qing Shui's broken clothes, but he couldn't remember who Qing Shui's chakra resembled at this moment. Uchiha Madara, who was still smiling at first, saw this sudden change, and his smile seemed to freeze, frozen stiffly on his face. Kakuzu may not be able to remember it for a moment, but Uchiha Madara can recognize who Qing Shui's chakra resembles at a glance. What on earth is going on? Uchiha Madara could no longer remain calm and looked at this scene in shock. I saw. Qing Shui folded his arms, looked at Kakuzu indifferently, and slightly raised the index finger of his left hand. The powerful azure blue chakra roared and roared out of his body. The strong wind stirred up, shattered the surrounding earth, and the blown soil was as sharp as a shuriken, scratching Kakuzu's shoulders. These chakras, which Qing Shui had been politely rejecting, finally had the chance to be released. Ah! Qing Shui took a long breath and said slowly. I'm sorry, Kakuzu. I wanted to use my own power to fight you, but my other chakra rioted. Normally I can suppress it, but now that I'm a little weak, it took the opportunity to run away. I hope you can survive it. If there is another chance to fight next time, I will fight you fairly. Qing Shui smiled helplessly. To be honest, I don't like this strange chakra. It doesn't belong to me, and sometimes it even interferes with my practice. I'm also very troubled. Kakuzu's eyes froze as he looked at Qing Shui, who was like a god descending to earth. What are you so worried about? You don't want this chakra, can you give it to me? You still dislike it, right? Kakuzu now doubts whether Qing Shui is the Jinchuriki of a certain tailed beast, or if there is some kind of monster similar to the tailed beast in his body. Kid, who interfered with your cultivation? I just commented on you occasionally. Senju Tobirama's voice sounded. My chakra belongs to you now. Stop dawdling and let the fool who attacked Xiao Suna feel my anger. Ching Shui smiled slightly. How could he tell Kakuzu and Senju Tobirama? Although Qian Shu Tojian sounded like Ching Shui was quarreling with him, so there was no violation. This is for Uchiha Madara. Ching Shui was telling him. Although I have Senju Tobirama's chakra in my body, he doesn't like it and even rejects it. It's Uchiha Izuna's chakra that is my true body. Listening to Ching Shui's words, Uchiha Madara's brain was spinning rapidly, and he seemed to understand something. Ching Shui slowly raised his hands. Vast currents rose out of thin air, and terrifying waves swallowed up the valley at this moment. Kakuzu's eyes were splitting, but in the face of this tsunami-like fury, he couldn't even use chakra to stay on the water. He could only barely keep himself from sinking, struggling in the waves. Ching Shui stood on the top of the wave, looked down at the extremely unwilling Kakuzu, and sighed, "This time, I didn't treat the battle fairly." The water flow beat furiously, and countless waves quickly rose into the air, forming an extremely fierce red-eyed water dragon, staring at Kakuzu with murderous intent. Water release. Water dragon bite explosion. The water dragon passed through Kakuzu, which was still resisting, and the black line of resentment was submerged in the waves of the sea. All resistance was ignored in the face of this absolute strength. After a while, the black lines all over Kakuzu's body were shattered, and he lay helplessly on the ground, waiting for Ching Shui to come and give him the final blow. And on the other side of the ninja world, Uchiha Madara finally figured out the logic and understood Ching Shui's words, and roared crazily, "Senju Tobirama, you despicable and despicable beast, get out of Ching Shui's body." Chapter 91. Uchiha Madara found the truth in anger. Let him understand everything. Why is Ching Shui obviously an Uchiha, but there is a vague shadow of Senju Tobirama? As early as when Ching Shui fought against Yashiro Uchiha, Uchiha Madara felt a little bit wrong. It's just that since water release and illusion are techniques that can be learned with some talent and are not unique, he doesn't take it too seriously. After all, Ching Shui is a descendant of Uchiha Kage, so it is normal for him to know some Senju Tobirama techniques. But Ching Shui's self-talk just now, the burst of chakra, and the pure water dragon bite explosion technique have allowed Uchiha Madara to lock in the only truth. Ching Shui is indeed the reincarnation of Uchiha Izuna, this cannot be false. But the chakra in Kionju Tobijian also exists in Ching Shui's body, harassing him from time to time. Dirty and despicable Senju Tobirama, I should have used my samsara eye to find your soul a long time ago and ruthlessly tear it into pieces with my mouth and teeth. Uchiha Madara's heart was full of hatred. If looks could kill, Tobirama in Ching Shui's body would have died 10,000 times. Uchiha Madara was so disgusted that he didn't want to speak. Senju Tobirama was not only the culprit of Uchiha Izuna's death, but he even bothered with the reincarnation of his brother after his death. This is no longer the ordinary Shido Tobirama, he must strike hard. Uchiha Madara's fist hardened. At this moment, he missed his Rinnegan so much. If those eyes were still there, I have to find a way to help Ching Shui get rid of that fool in Kionju Tobijian. Uchiha Madara tried his best to calm down his inner emotions, but every time he thought that Ching Shui had the chakra of Senju Tobirama in his body, his heart would hurt. My younger brother's chakra was finally reincarnated, and he met such a good boy like Ching Shui, so why did he have an extra Senju Tobirama? Senju Tobirama, can you get out? After I reach an agreement with Ching Shui, I will find a way to temporarily get back the Rinnegan eye that I placed with Nagato. Uchiha Madara's eyes were fierce. I will personally perform soul surgery on Ching Shui and drive that fool out. But although Uchiha Madara spoke harshly, he fell into silence after a moment. Even if Ching Shui didn't have Senju Tobirama's chakra in his body, Madara Uchiha didn't even think about how to subdue this younger brother. He has already seen that Ching Shui, this younger brother, is not just the reincarnation of Quan Na. Whether it is combat IQ, ferocious eye power, or the Uchiha bloodline that breaks through in battle, Ching Shui is stronger than Izuna at the same time. This is Uchiha who has the appearance of Shira in the ninja world. He's not the kind of love-minded Uchiha Obito who can throw a black zetsu at random and get rid of it. Now there is an extra Senju Tobirama chakra to interfere. The more he thought about it, the more Madara Uchiha felt that his aging heart was about to have a heart attack. What should he do? But that's it. Ching Shui in the form of Senju slowly lost Tobirama's chakra, and the Sharingan in his eyes suddenly flashed red, and he returned to the appearance of an Uchiha. With that flash of eye power, Madara Uchiha saw the shadow of Izuna, and it was as if he was looking at himself as a child. Uchiha Madara's heart moved and he calmed down a bit. Sure enough, Ching Shui is a descendant of the Uchiha clan. With the help of Izuna's chakra, he can still suppress that Senju Tobirama. Madara Uchiha silently cheered for his younger brother's chakra. Izuna, I believe in you. You and Ching Shui will never lose to that villain Senju Tobirama if you and Ching Shui work together. Uchiha Madara endured the pain and turned off the white Zetsu TV, locked himself in a small dark room, and forced himself to think of ways to break the situation. Although he couldn't figure out what to do for the time being. This situation is much more complicated than his plan to blacken the belt. But you have to think about it even if you can't think of it. The flashing red light in Ching Shui's eyes was Uchiha Madara's ticket to watch this perfect transformation show. From the laning target Uchiha Madara, you get Uchiha Madara's call. Uchiha Madara's call. The Uchiha bloodline in your body will quickly begin to awaken and enter an explosive period. Tisk, let me tell you, if we don't let these old men watch something exciting, they really won't be able to earn any decent gold coins. How about it? Uchiha Izuna transforms into Senju Tobirama. This program is the first of its kind in the ninja world. It is specially customized for Shira in the ninja world. The anchor Ching Shui, who was playing with people's hearts, exhaled a long breath of satisfaction, felt the power of his pupils begin to increase automatically, and raised a smile. You want to hide the gold coins, right? Madara, I am your brother Izuna. Don't hide your good things, give them to me one by one, they are all my family anyway. Kionju Tojian narrowed his eyes filled with coldness. After his power was repatriated by Ching Shui returned to his Uchiha appearance. Kionju Tobijian was keenly aware that Ching Shui's pupil power was inexplicably stronger than before. There seems to be some hidden remnants of Uchiha Izuna's demonic possession of Ching Shui, as evidenced by the increased pupil power. Senju Tobirama calmly analyzed the situation. After my power was instilled into Ching Shui, the child obviously broke away from the state of Uchiha fighting madman. This shows that my power can restrain Uchiha Izuna's chakra. I understand, Ching Shui is an Uchiha after all, and his chakra compatibility with Uchiha Izuna is naturally better than mine. Senju Tobirama sneered, and started a demonstration with Uchiha Izuna, who did not actually exist. But don't dream, even if you are just a subconscious chakra, I understand all your thoughts clearly. Quote, as long as I am still here, I will never give you the chance to possess Ching Shui again. I can communicate with Ching Shui, it's just chakra. I, Senju Tobirama, don't even take you seriously. When Madara Uchiha started to shut himself off and Tobirama Senju was eager to search for enemies in the void. Ching Shui was very realistic and ignored the two old men who couldn't get out the gold coins for the time being. He slowly walked to Kakuzu and looked at his broken body. Very miserable. Two hearts were pierced by Ching Shui's heavy knife, one heart was blown to pieces by his own aftermath, and the other was directly penetrated by the water dragon. Only the last fragmented heart mask was left, reluctantly held together, hanging on to the vitality of Kakuzu. Just kill me. Kakuzu lay flat on the wet ground and said in a calm tone, after going through ups and downs in the ninja world for so long, it's time for me to leave this place. It's not unjust for me to die at the hands of a brat with a talent like yours. Ching Shui looked at Kakuzu silently, feeling a flash of emotion in his heart. Even if Ching Shui used Tobirama's power to crush him, Kakuzu's heart was not shocked at all. On the contrary, it was not as shocked as when Ching Shui mocked him and fought against Senju Hashirama. Ninjas in the ninja world are so strange sometimes. Only the deepest things in their hearts can affect their emotions, especially old monsters like Kakuzu. You turned out to be a ninja from Takigakure village. Ching Shui picked up a forehead protector from Kakuzu's side. There was a waterfall pattern on it and a mark carved by force. What? You've been a bounty hunter for so long, and you still wear a forehead protector from the village. Kid, if you want to kill him, just do it. Don't talk about these silly questions. Kakuzu lay flat on the ground and reluctantly pointed to the last heart. Be more ruthless and give me a good time. A body like yours will be more valuable as a living body research material. Chingue slowly sat next to Kakuzu and said with a faint smile, for example, seal you, hold you for a while, and then slowly study the black lines in your body. Kakuzu's eyes narrowed. Although he is not afraid of death, if he falls into that situation, as a strong man with dignity, it would be much worse than death. Just when he wanted to say something to anger Chingue and give him a dignified death, Chingue laughed and shook his head. I said, I can't win this battle, so I won't treat you like that, but will give you a decent death. But, in return, Chingue raised a finger and said with a smile, a small thing, I want you to help me with a small thing. Kakuzu was silent. What else could he accomplish with his condition? But he still nodded. Say it, kid. I am a person who loves to listen to stories. I want to know why you betrayed Tokigakure, and why are you so obsessed with money even though you have such strength? Chingue sighed and said slowly. Forgive me for being presumptuous, but I'm really curious. Can the needs of a ninja with the power of a shadow be met by money? And why does a ninja who rebelled against the village decades ago still wear the village's badge? Forehead protector. The corners were turned to the side. This was a story he had buried deep in his heart. For him to tell Chingue this story was not much different from being tortured. I want to hear this because you are a respectable opponent. Chingue's voice seemed to be filled with magic and was breathtaking. I will keep it a secret. Only I know. I swear on the honor of the Uchiha clan. Kakuzu struggled for a moment, then nodded resignedly and told his story. I was originally a jonin in Tokigakure village. At that time, I was still very young and I liked that place. But one day, I was ordered by the senior officials to assassinate Senju Hashirama. At that time, I didn't understand what kind of person he was. With his tolerance and mercy, I had a chance to escape, but I was killed by the senior officials. He will be locked up and sentenced to death. The ninja who risked his life for the village was treated cruelly. I knew from then on that they just wanted to kill me, so I escaped from prison, took the village's secret technique, and killed all the senior officials. During that time, my former friends didn't stand up for me, but I don't want to blame them. There has never been anything real in this ninja world, everything is false. Kakuzu's voice became deeper and deeper, as if he had entered a state of reflection, and the emotion in his tone became more intense. After becoming a bounty hunter, I gradually discovered the beauty of money. In this false world, only money is the most real. Compared with those false promises and bonds, money can always be exchanged for its equivalent amount of goods. Chingue listened to Kakuzu's story silently and began to think deeply. What happened to Kakuzu reminded Chingue of Hitaki Sakumo. However, compared to Hitaki Sakumo who committed suicide, Kakuzu is strong and violent. Why, you don't think I'm a good person, do you? Kakuzu smiled ferociously. Stop being disgusting, I don't need your pity. Chingue shook his head slowly. I don't care whether you are a good person or a bad person. But I really don't want to kill you. Chingue looked down at Kakuzu and said softly, how about this? You tell me where you save your money and work for me for another 10 years and I can buy your life back. How about that? Kakuzu sneered. Sure enough, no matter how strong a kid is, he is still a kid, and he can still say such poor words. She is simply more immature than that Tsunade. From Kakuzu's point of view, Chingue had no reason not to kill him. This was just a trick to squeeze out the last bit of value from him before he died. As long as he says it, Muramasa's blade will immediately penetrate his heart. But in order to die, Kakuzu told him a place to hide the gold, and then waited for his death peacefully. But to Kakuzu's surprise, Chingue did not take action, but walked away. After a while, Chingue carried the body of a bandit and placed it in front of him. Although it probably won't meet your requirements, I'll use it for the time being. After all, the situation is urgent. Zhao was stunned. What do you mean, you really don't want to kill him? Kid, do you know what you are doing? Kakuzu's eyes were cold. Are you planning to humiliate me? Chingue smiled helplessly and flicked the Tokigakure forehead protector in his hand. Do you think I am a senior member of Tokigakure? Chingue looked directly at Kakuzu, with clear sincerity in his eyes. I'm not playing with fire, nor am I letting the tiger go home. But I'm thinking about your words, is there really no reality in this ninja world? The current situation is that you actively want to kill me, but the condition for my forgiveness is that you only work for me for 10 years. My condition is not excessive, right? Ching Shui looked directly at Kakuzu and said slowly, if you think there is still truth in this ninja world, then you should keep your words. If you regret it after today, I won't be afraid of having an enemy like you, but I will understand the lies of the ninja world. This is worth it to me. Kakuzu's heart trembled. Did this strange Uchiha brat really listen to his story? Don't dawdle, Kakuzu, tell me your choice like a man. Ching Shui looked down at Kakuzu and said with some irritation, your dawdling has already made me feel the hypocrisy of the ninja world. However, Kakuzu remained silent for a long time. After a moment, he slowly said, the contract is established. But it is only for 10 years. I will only work for you for 10 years. Ching Shui nodded, gave him a disgusted look, and neatly picked out the bandit's heart and stuffed it into Kakuzu's back. Okay, go ahead. I will contact you when I need you. Kakuzu's back squirmed, and the black thread absorbed the vitality of the heart, allowing him to barely recover from the near-death state. Kakuzu stood up slowly and stared at Ching Shui without hesitation, as if he was trying hard to see his true intention. Don't you still want money? Tell me how to give you the money I saved. Ching Shui waved his hand. You can save it for me first. When I use it, I will go to the gold exchange office and send a notice, and you will know. Go ahead and see you again in the future, my first migrant worker. Kid, Kakuzu snorted, but didn't know what to retort. He was really a migrant worker in Qingshui, and he still owed 10 years of death deeds, and his savings were wiped out. Kakuzu stood up and walked slowly out of the valley. Based on Kakuzu's experience, he knew that the best way at this moment was to escape as soon as possible. But his steps were very slow, as if he was waiting for Muramasa to pierce his chest again, and then Ching Shui let out a twisted laugh, using his self-esteem to play a cat-and-mouse game. This is not because Kakuzu is paranoid about being persecuted, but because many ninjas are so twisted in their hearts. But Kakuzu didn't wait until he reached the exit of the valley and couldn't help but look back. Ching Shui sat on the ground to rest, and noticed his gaze, and even waved goodbye to him. TCH, what a boring kid. 10 years from now, I will think of another way to kill you. Kakuzu was furious, but he still waved to Ching Shui awkwardly. From the opposing target Kakuzu, you get Earth Resentment U Chakra Mimicry. Earthly Resentment U Chakra Mimicry. Your chakra can perform Earthly Resentment U Mimicry, able to absorb other people's life force and chakra, and perform complex surgical operations. You don't seem to be very honest, Kakuzu-san. Listening to the pleasant electronic sound, Ching Shui smiled and said to himself, I wonder how long Asuma and Tsunade will have before they can get back. Well, let's not heal the injury for now. The injury will look more impactful. Tsunade-sensei, you and Lin should go back to the village and call for reinforcements. I have to go back to find Ching Shui. Asuma stopped suddenly. In the midst of inner struggle and entanglement, Asuma's mind kept flashing back images and precious memories of being with Ching Shui. A rebellious boy lives alone in an environment that neither his family nor his peers understand. No one can understand his thoughts. Even the girl he likes just thinks that he is pretending to be deep and not worthy of the radio. Until Ching Shui appeared, everything about Asuma is affirmed. The two chatted about the future of Konoha, imagining that the village would one day bloom with the true will of fire, teaching each other the secrets of the family, and communicating with each other like biological brothers. Under that mountain rock, the scene where Ching Shui slowly placed the fire dragon that illuminated the valley in his hand, Asuma would sometimes think of in his dreams. That was the best day of his life so far. Ching Shui's last words just now were constantly intertwined with this scene, stimulating Asuma's heart. I can fight now. Although the enemy is very strong, Ching Shui has taught me some powerful fire escape moves, which should come in handy. Asuma's eyes gradually became determined. Ching Shui and I often say, think more. I've thought a lot along the way and figured it out. I will not drag Ching Shui down. If the enemy attacks me, then I will be Ching Shui's chance to kill that monster. Asuma couldn't imagine how he would face Shisui when he returned to the village if something unexpected happened to Ching Shui, and how he would face his own heart in the dead of night. That guilt, which is more terrifying than death, will completely swallow him up. Asuma, who was already determined to die, felt more and more relaxed. At this moment, he felt that he and Chingue were facing each other across the airwaves, and their hearts were connected. Chingue, although I am always one step behind you, I will follow your footsteps closely and never fall behind. Asuma roared violently, as if to cheer himself up, turned around and started running wildly. If Senju Tobirama heard his voice, Asuma might give him a fair comment. He is worthy of being a monkey's son, better than that boy Shimura Danzo. Tsunade looked at Asuma's back with complicated eyes. Every time Asuma mentioned the word Chingue, her heart would tremble. As a mature ninja, Tsunade analyzed from a rational point of view that returning to the battlefield now is the stupidest behavior. Asuma and Nohara Rin have no strength, and she is bound by blood phobia. What can she do to help Chingue? Recalling the days spent with Chingue, the time was not very long, but it allowed Tsunade to experience the feeling of peace in her heart again. Tsunade closed her eyes, gritted her teeth, and murmured to herself, if the Chingue brat dies like this, then I will really become a joke in my life. She was also thinking at this moment, if something happened to Chingue, how would she face her own heart? Whenever Tsunade thinks of her important people who died, she hates the injustice and cruelty of fate. She is not even given a chance to save her. All she sees is the cold corpses of her relatives and friends. No matter how powerful medical ninjutsu is, it can't save a dead person. But this time, fate seemed to have opened a small opening for her. Chingue is not dead yet. Tsunade's mind was still filled with blood. She knew Chingue's talent. It was a genius even more outstanding than Orochimaru. But no matter how talented the young man is, he still needs time to redeem his talent and turn it into strength. Deep in Tsunade's heart, she didn't think Chingue could defeat Kakuzu, so she didn't think Chingue could survive. The subconscious in her heart told her, you are about to lose an important person again, a disciple who died because of you. Do not make jokes. Tsunade clenched her fists tightly, as if she was roaring with fate. Do you think I'm afraid of death? I just resent this powerless life that doesn't even give me a chance to stand in front of my loved ones. Quote. At this moment, the gentle smile on Chingue's face when he handed her the chicken soup appeared in Tsunade's mind. That smile seemed like the sun, dispelling the blood in Tsunade's heart. The chaotic chakra in her body also calmed down. Psychic technique. Moist bone forest slug. Tsunade suddenly formed a seal and slapped her hands heavily on the ground. Success. After the smoke cleared, a huge blue-white slug stood on the ground, looking at Tsunade in surprise. Tsunade-sama, I haven't seen you for a long time. No time for pleasantries, you idiot, the situation is urgent now. Tsunade turned to look at Nohara Lin aside, hesitated for a moment, and then asked her, Lin, the battle later will be very dangerous, do you want to come? Nohara Lin nodded without hesitation. Okay, I get it. Tsunade drove the giant slug forward. This slow, soft-bodied crawling creature, with the blessing of chakra and its huge size, broke out at a considerable marching speed. Asuma kid, come up. A moment later, Tsunade caught up with Asuma who was running. The three of them stood on top of the slug's head and went to support Chingue together. Asuma, I approve your battle plan. Tsunade's beautiful eyes held determination and evil spirit. Since I have summoned the slug, as long as you and Lin are not directly killed by Kakuzu with one hit, I can save you. If Kakuzu attacks you, Chingue and I will not save you, but will seize this opportunity to kill him first. In other words, he will attack you as your weakness, but you are actually the bait. Asuma listened to Tsunade's extreme plan, but nodded with a relaxed expression. Tsunade-sensei, I just figured it out. As long as I still have breath, Chingue will find a way to save me. Although Nohara Rin still looked a little scared, her expression immediately became determined. I understand, Tsunade-sama. And when they approached the valley where they came from, silent fear quietly descended on the hearts of these three people who had just ignited their fighting spirit. The blue earth has turned into dark scorched earth, the valley has collapsed in the middle, and the gravel on the ground is still filled with water vapor. It's as brutal as a ninja war. But there was no chakra fluctuation, replaced by deathly silence. Asuma's face instantly turned pale and she murmured to herself, no, Chingue won't lose. The color of blood in Tsunade's mind resurfaced again. She seemed to have arrived too late, and was about to see the body of an important person again. We couldn't even see the body. Kakuzu would not give up Ching Shui's body, so this time, we couldn't even see each other for the last time. Tsunade and the other three were filled with fear. As ninjas, they seemed to have had a premonition of Ching Shui's death. Entering the valley, this fear deepened again. Ching Shui is not here. Tsunade fell to the ground weakly, and the courage that had just surged from the bottom of her heart became shattered again at this moment. Asuma's eyes darkened, and he knelt on the ground and clutched his heart in pain, tears flowing down uncontrollably. Nohara Rin had difficulty breathing, as if she was suffocating. Her first lesson as a ninja was already beyond her ability. From the laning target, Tsunade, you have obtained the sealing technique Yin Seal. Coming from the laning target Asuma, you have obtained the fire release and ember burning technique. From the laning target Nohara Rin, you have received a slight enhancement in your medical talent. Senju Tobirama looked at Tsunade with some pain. Kid, why don't you show up yet? What are you waiting for? Ching Shui, who was lurking in the earth, shook his head and said slowly. Tobirama, pain is one of the sources of a ninja's strength. If you can't face this emotion directly, you won't even dare to face it in your own heart, and you won't be able to truly become strong. Qian Shu Feijian frowned. Although what Ching Shui said was very reasonable, there was a hint of magic in it. Originating from the unique magical nature of the Uchiha clan. Senju Tobirama sighed. Where did this demonic nature come from? He already had the answer in his heart. In fact, Ching Shui just said it casually for the sake of reward. Without pulling hard on the hearts of these people, where would the emotional fluctuations come from? But in Senju Tobirama's eyes, Ching Shui, who had just been possessed by Uchiha Sena's chakra, had a different demonic tone and behavior that was different from usual, but it was particularly consistent with the logic in his mind. If it was Ching Shui from the past, he should have appeared long ago. But there's no way. Ching Shui's body doesn't just contain the chakra of his thousand hands gate. Therefore, Senju Tobirama did not urge Ching Shui to show up, but change the subject. Ching Shui, don't try to negotiate with ninjas like Kakuzu in the future, and let such an enemy go. This is very dangerous. Human nature cannot withstand such a test. I know you feel pity for him, but it may bring disaster to you. The best way is to eradicate the root cause. Ching Shui sighed, with a rare hint of confusion in his tone. Tobirama, I know what you mean, but I really like his story, a story about the true and false aspects of the ninja world, which makes me not want to do anything to him. Quote, I like to read the historical classics of the ninja world, but I feel a deep-rooted falsehood in them, as if there is an invisible big hand that has given the world a tragic fate, making everyone unable to escape. On this land, talented ninjas will always appear, but they always appear in pairs. Peace, it seems, is not allowed in this world. In the end, all ninjas will always split into two groups and choose their own leaders. They will fight until there is a result, but there will always be no result. Tobirama, I seem to feel that the 1,000-year-old ninja world actually has no history, it is just repeated reincarnations. No one can escape this fate, whether it is you and me, or Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama. No matter what, they are all part of reincarnation. Senju Tobirama gradually frowned, and even the heartbroken Tsunade forgot about it, and began to think about what Ching Shui said. This is a horrifying interpretation of history. But the more he thought about it, the more Senju Tobirama felt a hint of recognition. Take Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama, whom he is most familiar with, as an example. As long as one of them is born 15 to 20 years later, then the ninja world may really usher in a period of peace that will last for at least 100 years. But just like what Ching Shui said just now, from a historical point of view, the ninja world is really like having an invisible big hand, which always uses a bad matching mechanism, so that every ninja who has the ability to bring peace and unity to the ninja world is destined to face a person he has to use the opponent that life defeats. When the two of them died together, everything started a new cycle again. Is this reasonable? This seems very unreasonable. If you think about it carefully, the history of the ninja world for thousands of years is like what Ching Shui said, constantly reincarnating and repeating. Qian Shu Tojian gradually gained a deeper understanding of Ching Shui. This boy from the Uchiha clan is the reincarnation of Uchiha Sena's chakra and the reincarnation of his chakra, but he is still the main body. Ching Shui may be like Uchiha Izuna, or he may be like him, but in the end, he is just like him. Whether it is Uchiha Izuna or Senju Tobirama, they will not let Kakuzu go, but will kill him immediately. And the two of them will not think about the peace and falsehood of the ninja world from history like Ching Shui. Ching Shui, you may be thinking too much. Qian Shu Tojian seemed to want to persuade Ching Shui, but he didn't know what to say at this moment. Ching Shui shook his head and smiled helplessly. I know. I'm just thinking, if even this world is false, will there be peace in the ninja world? Don't think about this anymore, Tobirama, I just have feelings in my heart. I will pay attention to it next time. I even rely on your strength to fight against each other, but I am talking about the truth and falsehood of the world. It's a bit ridiculous. Ridiculous. Senju Tobirama didn't think it was funny. But Ching Shui seemed not to want to talk about this topic anymore and smiled. Let's go, it's time to give them a surprise. Kionju Tobijian was silent. At this moment, his mind began to spin. In the ninja world, is there such a pair of invisible hands? Is this Ching Shui's unfounded conspiracy theory, or is it a trace of truth that has not been covered up in history? Tsunade-sensei, why are you back? Ching Shui slowly emerged from the earth, appeared next to Tsunade, and said with a smile, Kakuzu is gone. I dealt with him for a long time, and finally hid with the help of Earth Escape. Hearing this familiar voice, Asma raised her tearful eyes excitedly and ran towards Ching Shui in an instant. But the one who was faster than him was Tsunade. Tsunade, who was immersed in bloody memories, seemed to have woken up from a nightmare, and she hugged Ching Shui as a life-saving straw with all her strength, as if Ching Shui would disappear as soon as she let go. Tears wet Ching Shui's shoulders. At the moment when Ching Shui was thought to be dead, the deepest memories in Tsunade's mind, the scattered internal organs and the cracked corpse, fiercely attacked her again. And Ching Shui's voice was like the sun, dispelling these horrific memories. Ching Shui was like the end of her unfortunate life. Fate finally favored her once. Asuma looked at Tsunade blankly. He originally wanted to rush over and hug Ching Shui, but how could anyone be faster than him? It can only be said that Tsunade is worthy of being a Junin, and her speed is faster than that of a genin like him. Asuma ignored one thing. Nohara Rin next to him seemed to have moved, but Tsunade was faster than all of them. Tsunade-sensei, you're a little too forceful. Ching Shui patted Tsunade's shoulder and motioned for her to relax a little. Tsunade let go after realizing it, her eyes filled with joy of regaining her lost body, but she was still keenly aware of Ching Shui's wound, and quickly and gently grabbed Ching Shui's arm. Tsunade-sensei, there is blood. Ching Shui smiled apologetically. The chakra is somewhat exhausted. I'll be fine by myself after a while. Tsunade took a deep breath and said with firm eyes, no, I'll do it. I'm your teacher and the strongest medical ninja in Konoha. Tsunade mustered up her courage and looked directly at Ching Shui's scorched arm. These are the wounds left by Kakuzu's self-destruction attack, and there are some small cuts, with traces of blood still flowing. But the amazing thing is, the red blood on Ching Shui's arm, although it made Tsunade feel tearing pain, seemed to cover the blood that once made her tremble. She always maintained her sanity. Tsunade-sensei, are you okay? How about I do it? I'm already very proficient in the palm immortal technique that Ching Shui taught me. Nohara Lin walked slowly to Ching Shui's side and said softly. No, I'll do it. Tsunade adjusted to the red blood and concentrated on treating Ching Shui's wounds, and green fluorescence flashed in her hands. Tsunade-sensei, are you no longer afraid of blood? Ching Shui felt the numbness in his arms and said with a smile, I knew you would get better. Tsunade's heart trembled. Is it really better? Perhaps, it was just ignored subconsciously. But the hot body temperature of the green water in the palm of her hand seemed to give Tsunade a strong inner strength, slowly dispelling the last trace of blood in her heart. The so-called blood phobia is an excessive protective measure produced by the human body as her deep consciousness associates blood with intense pain. The existence of Ching Shui broke Tsunade's psychological self-suggestion and told her that there was no certain connection between blood and her misfortune. Senju Tobirama looked at this scene with a pleased expression. Ching Shui is indeed a great inheritor of the will of fire. He can even cure Tsunade's anemia. Uchiha Izuna, I forgot to tell you. Qian Shu Feijian said leisurely. It's not 2 against 1, but 3 against 1. My granddaughter is Qing Shui's master. So, I advise you to take care of yourself and get out of here. No one answered Tobirama, but Senju Tobirama shrugged and smiled victoriously. Qing Shui, my grandfather left this to me. I gave it to you as an amulet. After Tsunade carefully treated Qing Shui's wounds, she took off a necklace glowing with green light and slowly put it on Qing Shui. Once, I gave it to the most important person in me, and I hope it can be given to you. Bring good luck. Does this mean that I am the most important person to Tsunade-sensei now? Qing Shui blinked and asked in a teasing tone. You're just a brat who likes to talk nonsense and show off. Tsunade turned around suddenly, and her tone became that of a heroic ninja again. Go back to the village and have a good rest. From the laning target Tsunade, you get the Senju Uzumaki composite bloodline. Listening to Tsunade's words, Senju Tobirama was stunned. As one of the people who knew Tsunade best, he seemed to hear a hint of guilt in Tsunade's words. Xiao Gang really just treats Qing Shui as his younger brother. There is nothing that cannot be admitted. Senju Tobirama shook his head, no longer thinking about Tsunade, and focused on Qing Shui's doubts about the mastermind behind the ninja world. As a scientific researcher, Senju Tobirama doesn't believe in coincidences, let alone the history of the ninja world that has been repeated for thousands of years. It could be a coincidence within a coincidence. 1 month later, Thousand Hands Ancestral House. In the past, only one woman lived in this large house. But today, Konoha's top management gathered here, as well as those ninjas who were regarded as the Hokage line. Sarutobi Hiruzen was sitting on a futon that was not very wide, but his posture was extremely upright. Beside him were Hokage assistant Shimura Danzo, who had just been lifted from confinement and resumed his original position, and Konoha advisors Mito Kadoin and Kaharu Kaharu. In the back row of Konoha's top brass were Jiraiya, Tsunade and Orochimaru, the 3 disciples of Hiruzen Sarutobi. Up to the last row is Jiraiya's apprentice Namikaze Minato. In this room, whether it was Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Hokage of Konoha, or Danzo Shimura, who was suppressing anger in his heart, they all politely put away their usual habits of superiors, like students waiting for instructions. They had been waiting for a while, but no one dared to say anything, and they were still very well behaved. Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes slowly scanned the room. When he was a child, he was brought here by Senju Tobirama to learn the sealing technique. On the wall are various photos of Senju Hashirama, including majestic Hokage formal attire, funny life photos, and warm group photos. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed lightly, another pillar of Konoha was about to fall. After a while, the door to the inner room slowly opened, and everyone's expressions were startled. The old Uzumaki Mito held Uzumaki Kushina's hand, walked slowly in front of everyone, and sat down. This child is ready to serve as the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Monkey, you can prepare the layout of the ceremony. While I can still control the Nine Tails at last, hand over the Nine Tails Jinchuriki smoothly. Sarutobi Hiruzen lowered his head suddenly, as if an Anbu was reporting to the Hokage. I understand, Mito-sama. He must treat this woman like this. She is the wife of the first Hokage, the Nine-Tailed Jinchuriki, the strongest sealing ninja in the ninja world today, and Konoha's Dinghai Shenzhen. Although Uzumaki Mito has never taken any action, her existence means too much. In the first ninja war, Konoha faced a joint attack from the 4 hidden villages in the early days. However, with such a rare disparity in strength, the 4 hidden villages did not dare to steal Konoha directly. It consumes Konoha's vitality. And even after Senju Tobirama died in the battle, Konoha fell into an obvious period of weakness, and no one dared to provoke him anymore. The reason for this is Uzumaki Mito. Although other villages also have tailed beasts. But if this woman is pushed into a hurry, and she does not protect Konoha but seeks a strategy of mutual destruction, even if she cannot control the power of the Nine Tails, as long as it is destructively released, no one in the remaining 4 hidden villages will be able to control it. I can bear this loss. This kind of deterrence even radiated to the Second Ninja War. Sunagakur, who is going crazy because of poverty, and Sanshoyu Hanzo, who wants to be the 6th Kage, are fighting Konoha so hard that they can't tell each other apart. The other 3 hidden villages still maintained a wait-and-see attitude. They only dared to do some sneaky tricks to take advantage, and did not dare to openly start a war. They all know that although Uzumaki Mito is old, he may not be invincible. Therefore, even if other hidden villages have long coveted Konoha's resources, they are not far behind in the past few years. Only the two barefooted ones, Omegakure and Sunagakure, were not afraid of wearing shoes. They knew that they were not worthy of Uzumaki Mito to use the power of the Kyuubi, so they acted extraordinarily recklessly. Kushina, her chakra level is enough to bear the seal of the 9 tails. I will also leave her the corresponding seal formation to help her adapt to the life of a Jinchuriki. Uzumaki Mito coughed lightly, his eyes swept across the photos on the wall with nostalgia, and looked at the juniors present. At this moment, everyone, including Shimura Danzo, looked at Uzumaki Mito with respect. Uzumaki Mito's life is actually far from over. As a genius sealing ninja who invented the yin seal, it is very easy to extend his life. But in order to hand over Kyuubi in the best condition, Uzumaki Mito chose to end his life early. With Uzumaki Mito's identity and status, no one can force her to do this. Everything is of her own free will. Tsunade, sit here, I want to see you. Tsunade stood up quickly, sat next to Uzumaki Mito, and held her grandmother's hand, Grandma-sama. Uzumaki Mito looked at Tsunade with a smile, but there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. Uzumaki Mito knew what state Tsunade was in before. She was drunk, dreaming, and unconscious, which made her, an old man, very worried, but he couldn't do anything to help her. As a Jinchuriki, Uzumaki Mito understands a truth: the damage to the soul is much more difficult to heal than the physical damage. But the Tsunade in front of her now was radiating life from the inside out, and there was light in her eyes again, and she was very beautiful. Shao Suna, have you figured it out? She is indeed Grandpa Yu's granddaughter. Uzumaki Mito said happily. Tsunade's matter was one of the few things she couldn't worry about. Tsunade smiled, gave a thumbs up, and said playfully, your blood is also supporting me. Compared to your gambling grandpa, I am more like the strong Yu. Uzumaki Mito smiled, but found something strange, and looked at Tsunade's chest. There, the necklace that Tsunade always wore close to her body disappeared. Tsunade smiled, aware of Uzumaki Mito's gaze, and said softly, I gave it to my disciple, Uchiha Seishui of the Uchiha clan. He is a very good young man. Hearing this, Danzo Shimura's breathing became heavier. During the days when he was strictly grounded, Hiruzen Sarutobi passed the establishment of the Tsunade class with special arrangements. He, the former assistant of the Hokage, even received the news after a long time. That was originally the ninja he fancied, the best helper for Shimura Danzo to ascend to the position of Hokage. How could a mere Tsunade know how to use a sharp blade of Uchiha Chingsui's level? What a waste of resources. But Danzo Shimura seems to have forgotten one problem. Mito Uzumaki in front of him has the ability to perceive the good and evil in people's hearts, and can even detect the emotions in people's hearts. So, Uzumaki Mito glanced at Shimura Danzo and said, Danzo, if you have something to say, just tell me. Shimura Danzo was shocked, lowered his head quickly, and whispered, sorry, Mito-sama, I was thinking about Nibu's recent deployment of defenses against the enemy, and I got a little excited. Sarutobi Hiruzen raised the corner of his mouth and patted Shimura Danzo on the shoulder. Danzo, you have worked so hard just after you came back. It's really hard on you. Shimura Danzo wanted to be angry but didn't dare to get angry. He didn't believe that Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't guess why he was angry. It was because of Chingue that his assistant Hokage was imprisoned at home for 3 months like a prisoner and lost all his power. Chingue, Uchiha Chingue. Uzumaki Mito looked at Tsunade tenderly and said slowly, it's a nice name, and he is a child of the Uchiha clan. The 9 tails in Uzumaki Mito's body seemed to be stressed when he heard the word Uchiha. He struggled restlessly and roared. The Uzumaki clan, the Uchiha clan, and the Senju clan, the ninjas from these 3 clans should all die. How ridiculous. Senju Hashirama's necklace was given to an Uchiha brat by you, the unlucky granddaughter. Kyuubi was tightly bound by chains, but his mouth was not blocked, and he cursed crazily. Uzumaki Mito, you keep saying that you are an obstacle to me, and you also say that you want me to communicate with my soul and not seal my vision, but you still tied me up, and now you are sending me around like an object. I am a Kyuubi and a natural disaster. You have already received your retribution for treating me like this. However, an Uchiha brat deceived Senju Hashirama's granddaughter. I have already seen that the Uchiha clan counterattacked in Konoha and it was Senju's fault. One day. You can also feel it, right? Your granddaughter named Tsunade feels warm in her heart when she mentions that Uchiha, ha 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 ha. Even though Kyuubi had raised his voice to the maximum, the expression on Uzumaki Mito's face did not change. But in her heart, she began to think. As Tsunade's grandmother, Uzumaki Mito knew that Tsunade had given Senju Hashirama's necklace to two people. One was Kato Dan, who had a crush on each other at the time, and the other was his younger brother Naoki. So, why is Ching Shui, a child of the Uchiha clan, so important to Tsunade? Do you regard him as a younger brother? What exactly is this situation? Uzumaki Mito sighed softly and looked at Kushina aside, feeling a little worried. The ability of the Nine Tails to confuse people is evident. Even after being the Kyuubi Jinchuriki for so many years, she would still be shaken. But there is nothing we can do about it. The Uchiha clan and the Senju have never had a harmonious situation since ancient times. Even the pair of Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara spend much more time fighting than in peace. Tsunade's act of giving the necklace to Ching Shui made it hard not to make Uzumaki Mito think too much. The Uchiha clan is not all reckless, there are also some who can deceive people, such as the former Uchiha Izuna. If the disguise is very good, it is not impossible to invade when Tsunade's mind is cracked. Shao Gang, since I am your apprentice, I should come to today's meeting. I also want to meet this child. Uzumaki Mito smiled. Go, Suna, bring him to see me. Tsunade nodded blankly. Why are you suddenly going to see Ching Shui? But Tsunade didn't think too much, turned around and walked towards the Uchiha clan. Tsunade will comply with Uzumaki Mito's request. After Uzumaki Mito said these words, the atmosphere at the scene became subtle and tense. No one would think that Uzumaki Mito would have a purpose to meet a junior like Ching Shui on a whim during the ceremony of handing over the Jinchuriki from Kyuubi. Old people like Sarutobi Hiruzen, Shimura Danzo, Mito Monin, and Kaharu Kudeni all know that Mito Uzumaki has the ability to sense the deepest good and evil in people's hearts. They guessed it instantly, they were going to find out what Uchiha Chingsui was. Shimura Danzo raised the corner of his mouth and was extremely excited. As expected of Mito-sama, he is so alert just after hearing the name of an Uchiha. I've long seen that something is wrong with that brat. Only the fools around Hiruzen couldn't see it. Both Tsunade and his stupid and careless son were deceived by that brat. Only I am awake. Danzo Shimura's thinking continued to spread. As long as there is something wrong with that kid, even if it is the emotion caused by nervousness, I can use it as material to attack Hiruzen and Uchiha in the future, hehehehe. Danzo Shimura didn't believe that even he would be nervous in this environment. Ching Shui, a mere Uchiha brat, one of these top people in Konoha, and the legendary Uzumaki Mito, can still maintain their composure. He doesn't believe it. As long as there is any flaw in Ching Shui, when Mito Uzumaki dies, this will be the moral high ground in Danzo Shimura's hands. Sarutobi Hiruzen is not good at recognizing people, and Tsunade is unclear about employing people. Danzo Shimura has already started thinking of lyrics. Then, he can propose to hand over Uchiha Chingsui to him to control, then control the Uchiha clan, and finally ascend to the position of Hokage. Just when Danzo Shimura entered fantasy time, Ching Shui was standing in a corner of the clan, chatting with Yashiro Uchiha with a smile. At this moment, Uchiha Yashiro was introducing his friends to Ching Shui. He is Iron Fire, he is Rice Fire, and this one is Yahweh. This is my uncle, Uchiha En, the elder of our clan. After Uchiha Yashiro had a drink with Tetsuka and Inari that day, Ching Shui's deeds were secretly and openly spread among the Uchiha clan. What Uchiha Yashiro said at that time was, he could tell others about his violent beating, but he could only tell it when he was trying to get help from the clan for Ching Shui, and he had to pay attention to a certain degree of secrecy. After all, this was done behind the backs of the Uchiha tribes Lao Setsuna and Uchiha Fugaku, who were now in power. Uchiha Setsuna's ill will towards Ching Shui is well known to everyone in the Uchiha clan, but Uchiha Fugaku, as the clan leader, is very close to Uchiha Setsuna, and his attitude is also evident. But the problem is, when you tell a person a secret and allow him to tell others conditionally, sooner or later everyone will know it. The few people present now, the 3 Magatama of the Uchiha clan, are probably in this situation. Everyone knew that Yashura had been beaten, but they thought that only he and the person he told knew. These are all tribesmen I am familiar with. Although I am not familiar with you, Lord Qingshui, I have been close friends for a long time. Uchiha Yashura hinted at Qingshui with his eyes, seeming to say, these are all our people. I found them, am I good? Qingshui gave him a subtle look of encouragement, and then greeted everyone politely, you are all my seniors and elders. Qingshui is very happy to meet you. If you are injured due to practice, I know some basic medical ninjutsu, and I will welcome you to my home. Uchiha Yashura nodded quickly. Qingshui's medical ninjutsu is very powerful. A look of surprise flashed in Uchiha Inari's eyes. His waist injury is an old problem, which affects his teleportation technique. I also have some experience in the swordsmanship of our Uchiha clan. If I have the opportunity, I hope to confirm and communicate with you. Uchiha En smiled. Qingshui boy, I am also a fan of our clan's sword skills. I still have the classics of the patriarch Izuna Shao handed down at home. Let's find a day to make friends with swords. Uchiha Yashura glanced at his uncle with a subtle expression, and a smile appeared on his lips. Lao Dang, you think you are very capable, right? It's superfluous to read the classics of Patriarch Quan Nai. It's better to just watch Qingshui practice swordsmanship. He has decided that when Uchiha En goes to find Qingshui, he must watch. Qingshui smiled and promised everyone, and said slowly, I can also cook a few good dishes. Since the Yashura eldest brother has introduced so many friends to me today, why not come to my house to be a guest together? Uchiha Yashura's eyes were filled with joy. He hadn't been to Qingshui's house yet. The other Uchiha also became happy. It seemed that Qingshui was not trying to deal with them before, but actually respected them. Otherwise, you wouldn't invite someone to your home for dinner the first time you meet them. This would definitely mean closing the door. Okay, let's try Qingshui's craftsmanship today. Qingshui boy, I have a request today. I want to eat beef. Qingshui, I may have to trouble you again later. I want to see my waist. For a moment, the scene was very lively, and everyone surrounded Qingshui in the middle, talking and laughing. What's interesting is that there are hawks, doves, and neutrals from the Uchiha clan, but where their eyes meet at this moment, there is only Qingshui who is smiling gently. Just as everyone in Uchiha was preparing to leave, a man slowly walked out of the darkness and looked at Qingshui with sharp eyes. A party. How about taking me with you? This man is the current leader of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Fugaku. Uchiha Yashura narrowed his eyes, quietly stood in front of Qingshui, and forced a smile. Chief Fugaku, eavesdropping on other people's conversations is not a good habit. Uchiha Fugaku snorted. I was just passing by, and you guys are too noisy. Uchiha Fugaku crossed the crowd and looked at Qingshui, with mixed feelings in his heart. As the clan leader, he hopes that Qingshui can get involved with the top management of Konoha, but he does not want to be surpassed. Uchiha Fugaku also wants to participate in the decision-making of the top management. After all, he is the leader of the Uchiha clan. Why don't you report the clan leader's actions to him? Otherwise, what's the point of being the leader of his clan? He can't even control the direction of the clan. Uchiha Fugaku disliked this feeling that the power in his hands was not solid enough but was gradually being lost. He had no real dislike for Qingshui, but Qingshui's existence touched his interests, which was enough to make Uchiha Fugaku wary. Qingshui glanced at Uchiha Fugaku. He didn't have a good impression of this man. A clan leader allows his son to massacre his clan members without taking any action. What else can be said? Among the clansmen who trusted him and followed him, which one trusted him just to be killed by Uchiha Itachi? This hesitant and repetitive character. But just when Qingshui smiled and was about to speak, Tsunade ran over in a hurry, ignoring the surprised Uchiha. Uchiha Yashura blinked. What do the guards of this tribe do? Are you letting outsiders in without anyone to take care of you? Oh, she's the princess of the land of fire, so that's okay, there's no place in this village that she can't go to. Qingshui, come with me, someone wants to see you. Tsunade ignored Qingshui's refusal, rubbed his black hair forcibly, and looked at his clothes. It's okay, no need to change clothes, this is it. Tsunade, as the leader of the clan, I have something to do with Chingue. Please wait for another day. Uchiha Fugaku grimaced and said in a deep voice, we, the Uchiha clan, are holding a clan meeting tonight. Tsunade sneered and looked back at Uchiha Fugaku. She was not familiar with this person, but in just a moment, Tsunade understood what Uchiha Fugaku wanted to do. This is to show off to Chingue. Uchiha Fugaku, do you know who wants to see Chingue? Tsunade said with a sneer, looking at Uchiha Fugaku playfully, with a very straightforward provocation in her eyes. Uchiha Fugaku looked around at the expressions of his clan members sizing him up, and his heart sank. Although he was very reluctant to offend Tsunade, if he backed down at this time, his prestige as the leader of the clan would be really ruined. No matter who he is, Uchiha Chingue belongs to the Uchiha clan, and it is necessary to participate in the clan meeting. Uchiha Fugaku waved his hand majestically. Don't Tsunade Hime, who was born in Senju, understand this truth? Oh, it's my grandmother Uzumaki Mito who wants to see Chingue. Tsunade looked at Uchiha Fugaku's smile that suddenly stiffened, and said with a smile, Chief Fugaku, do you agree? Uchiha Fugaku froze on the spot. Even Sarutobi Hiruzen, Uchiha Fugaku was able to find a way to keep his mouth shut without making the situation so ugly. But if it were Uzumaki Mito, Uchiha Fugaku wouldn't even want to be stubborn. I saw Uchiha Fugaku forcing an awkward smile and quickly turned around and left. He originally wanted to snort, but when it reached his throat, he swallowed it back. Everyone, I'm sorry, I was invited by an elder. Chingue still had the same gentle look, no different from before. Let's go now, seniors, if Chingue can help in the future, just come to me directly at home. The Uchiha nodded repeatedly. They knew that what Chingue was saying at the moment might be mere words, but after Tsunade mentioned Uzumaki Mito, it sounded more and more pleasant to the ears. Look at Chingue, he is gentle and polite, neither arrogant nor impetuous. Looking back at Uchiha Fugaku, I can only say that he is not very good at rating. Uchiha Yashira stared at Chingue's back and laughed. Uchiha Yan scolded him and whispered, tell your second uncle, how come Chingue has such a good relationship with Tsunade, and how can he get along with Uzumaki Mito? Although Uchiha Yashira didn't know anything, he waved his hand inscrutably. I can only understand the things here naturally. The water is still relatively deep, and the interests involved are more complicated. Anyway, everyone, if you have any questions about Chingue, you can come and talk to me. We have a good relationship. Everyone in the Uchiha looked at the back of Chingue, who was not far away, talking and laughing side by side with Tsunade. Then he looked at Yashira Uchiha who was standing with his hands behind his back. Everyone was sour for a moment. Everyone who knew the inside story was cursing in their hearts. What the hell, let this brat Uchiha Yashira pretend. Why is this kid so lucky? This old guy Setsuna deserves to die. Why didn't he let me get beaten? And in Chingue's body. Qian Shu Feijian said in a deep voice, Chingue, accept my power, this is not an easy matter. What's wrong, Tobirama? Although Chingue had a vague understanding, he still said in a doubtful tone, you won't let me use your power to fight her, will you? Let's not talk about whether she is an old woman or whether I can beat her. Why is your brother-in-law like this? Kid, calm down. I really can't beat him, haha. Chingue raised his eyebrows and whistled funny. Who told you that? Although my sister-in-law's sensory ninjutsu and Vajra blockade are indeed difficult to deal with, and the amount of chakra is amazing, but when I release my Flying Thunder God technique and Forbidden technique at full strength, there is no chance. Senju Tobirama had a tough mouth. As for Kyubi, well, I won't lose anyway, I have the Flying Thunder God technique. Chingue clicked his tongue. Sensho Tobirama suddenly woke up and rolled his eyes angrily. Not only did this kid start talking nonsense again, but his wise and calm thinking was also led astray, and he started arguing with Chingue about who was stronger, him or Mito Uzumaki. In fact, Senju Tobirama had always felt that this kind of question was childish. What adult would argue about this? But talking to Chingue seems to be quite interesting. Chingue, this is a very serious matter, related to your future development in Konoha. After gathering his strange mood, Kionju Tobirama said seriously. I know what my sister-in-law wants to do. Her perception ability combined with the power of the nine tails can identify the good and evil in a person's heart, and she can also analyze emotions and even character from chakra. Ching Shui listened carefully in silence and stopped making jokes. What Senju Tobirama is talking about is probably the Kagura Heart's Eye, the strongest sensory ninjutsu in the ninja world, which comes from the Uzumaki clan's signature blood succession limit. Moreover, Uzumaki Mito can also control the nine tails ability to sense good and evil. Shang Phosphorus can still feel the darkness and thickness from the chakra. Then with Uzumaki Mito's strength combined with the nine tails, he might be able to eavesdrop on other people's thoughts, right? When I am in power, I will ask my sister-in-law to use this ability to thoroughly identify the selected high-level successors, eliminate ninjas suspected of having problematic ingredients, and regularly clean out spies in the village. Senju Tobirama said very skillfully, being very familiar with Uzumaki Mito's abilities. This ability was completely exploited by him back then, and it affected Konoha in all aspects. Tobirama, you use ninjutsu to check people's hearts. Doesn't the will of fire say that you must trust your companions? Ching Shui seemed to have discovered a blind spot and said in surprise, Sarutobi Hiruzen, Shimura Danzo and others, have you already let Uzumaki Mito test? So, in fact, the successor of Hokage has already been decided internally, right? To Ching Shui's surprise, Senju Tobirama did not deny it, but simply admitted it. You were right, Ching Shui, not only Monkey and the others, I also asked my sister-in-law to take action against the Anbu ninjas. Kid, the will of fire is just something in the book. In order to make the village operate more stably, any means can be used if necessary. Remember, Ching Shui, this is also part of the will of fire. Ching Shui felt a little unnatural in Qian Shufeijian's instructive tone. What are you doing? Ching Shui had a strange sense of instant vision, as if Qian Shufeijian was like an old emperor from the feudal era, teaching him the prince's imperial skills. Qian Shufeijian cleared his throat and finally turned to the topic. Anyway, you understand, my sister-in-law will definitely sense you. Ching Shui blinked, and at this moment, he understood what Qian Shufeijian was worried about. Old man, you don't really think I have Uchiha Izuna's chakra, do you? Although I really want it, I, Ching Shui, really don't have that thing. Ching Shui accepts it, but although Ching Shui understood, he still frowned and refused. What's the matter? I, Uchiha Ching Shui, am an upright person and do things honestly, and there is nothing shameful about me. Could it be that Uzumaki Mito is discriminating against the Uchiha bloodline? Qian Shu Tobijian's expression froze, and he didn't know how to tell Ching Shui for a moment. Sister-in-law's perception is so powerful. Although Ching Shui is indeed a good boy, his sister-in-law doesn't know about it. If she sensed Uchiha Izuna's dirty and filthy chakra, wouldn't Ching Shui be doomed? When Senju Tobirama was in power, Uzumaki Mito's opinion was consulted on major matters. And this is still the era when Sarutobi Hiruzen is the Hokage. If Uzumaki Mito decides that Ching Shui is a problematic Uchiha, no matter how fierce and pure the will of green water and fire is, there will be no platform for it to bloom. If you say you can't do it, then you really can't do it, and you can't do it. The gold content of the Queen Mother of Konoha is so sufficient. In short, I am doing it for your own good. All this is for the will of fire, understand? Senju Tobirama waved his hand unreasonably. As I said, don't reject the power of Hokage, otherwise you won't have the will of fire. Instead of letting Ching Shui know that in his body, besides himself, there is also Uchiha Izuna's chakra. Senju Tobirama used the will of fire again very flexibly. Hearing this, Ching Shui suppressed the smile in his heart and said helplessly, okay, you are the Hokage. I, a poor Konoha genin, will obey your orders. I will do whatever you say. That's right, kid, I can still harm you. Qian Shufeijian smiled proudly, very satisfied with Ching Shui's reaction. This man is really weird. Ching Shui still clearly remembered that when Qian Shu Tojian discovered that he could carry his power, he found a time to talk to him, looking fierce and vigilant. It's better now. Even if I don't want it, I have to hurry up and send it to him. I even have to use the will of fire to send it. This moment, The power of Senju Tobirama once again poured into Ching Shui's body, and under the careful control of the master of forbidden arts, his power spread to every corner of Ching Shui, ensuring that it could cope with Uzumaki Mito's sensory tolerance from all angles. Technique. The power of Senju Tobirama is like an armor, tightly covering Ching Shui's body. Assuming that Ching Shui really has Uchiha Izuna's chakra in his body, Uzumaki Mito may not even be able to sense it. It can only be said that no matter how powerful Uzumaki Mito's perception is, how could she have thought that her opponent was her brother-in-law? Things in the ninja world are so unpredictable sometimes. We're here, Ching Shui, don't be nervous. Tsunade let go of Ching Shui's hand and said with a smile. Don't be nervous. Grandma Mito is very kind. Although the old man and Danzo Shimura are there, no one dares to pick on you in front of Grandma Mito. Along the way, because Ching Shui was talking to Feijian, his pace was a bit slow. Tsunade grabbed Ching Shui's hand and ran. However, no one cares about this. Ching Shui didn't care, Tsunade didn't care either, and even Senju Tobirama didn't bother to pay attention. This master of forbidden arts seemed to find it interesting to confront Mito Uzumaki once, and he kept fine-tuning his power in Ching Shui's body with great interest, hoping to respond to his sister-in-law's perception with the most perfect defense. On the contrary, it belongs to Tiangong. Don't worry, Tsunade-sensei, I'm also looking forward to meeting Mito-sama, the legendary female ninja. Ching Shui and Tsunade walked side by side into the Senju ancestral home with calm steps. And the moment you come in, everyone's eyes were locked on Ching Shui. Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes were full of trust, Shimura Danzo's eyes were full of coldness, and Kaharu and Mito Kadoyan looked at Ching Shui with suspicion. Jiraiya in the back row was simply curious, while Orochimaru looked like he was having fun. Despite the gazes of so many powerful men, the smile on Ching Shui's face did not change at all. It sounds quite bluffing, and it is also the top lineup in Konoha. Even Hatake Tsukumo felt shaken in his heart when he came here. But who is Ching Shui? What a scene. The first one on Ching Shui's list is a certain ninja Shira who does not want to be named, and the second one on the list is Senju Tobirama, an enthusiastic Konoha villager. Except for Uzumaki Mito, even if these people are stacked together, can they be more powerful than these two people? Ching Shui slowly said hello to the people present. It was the first time for Ching Shui to see many of these people. Uzumaki Mito, who was on the main seat, narrowed his eyes slightly. Picture. When Uzumaki Mito saw Ching Shui for the first time, he almost thought it was Uchiha Izuna resurrected. But upon closer inspection, it doesn't look like it. And in a daze, she saw the shadow of an acquaintance. But this idea was so outrageous that Uzumaki Mito thought he was old. But just Ching Shui's appearance made her alert. It is indeed possible for a man of this level to take advantage of Tsunade's fragile heart and sneak in to coax her heart. Uzumaki Mito's expression did not change, he was still smiling, and he waved to Ching Shui. My child, sit here, you are Shaozuna's apprentice, right? You are such a beautiful young man. Ching Shui said hello crisply and sat obediently on the futon next to Uzumaki Mito. Okay, Xiao Gang has already accepted a disciple, he's already so old. Uzumaki Mito's voice was very kind, and his movements were natural, stroking Ching Shui's head like an old man. But at this moment, Uzumaki Mito's silent perception has begun, and the perception ability of Kagura's inner eye and nine tails has firmly covered Ching Shui. The combination of the strongest sensing ninja, the strongest tailed beast, and the closest sensing distance can be called the exclusive inner CT in the ninja world. Ching Shui chuckled, as if he didn't notice anything, and allowed Mito Uzumaki to stroke his head. Perception, right, feel it well, Uzumaki Mito, Kyubi. After a few breaths, Uzumaki Mito, who had always had a calm expression, suddenly narrowed his eyes and widened them as wide as possible. And the Kyubi in her body was completely crazy at this moment. Tobirama, Uchiha Madara. I sensed that Mito Uzumaki had a strong desire to explore the host, so I bound him as a laning target. It senses that the tailed beast Nine Tails has a strong hatred towards the host, and binds it as a target. Ching Shui innocently blinked his beautiful eyes. This has nothing to do with me, it has nothing to do with Ching Shui. I just sat there and let this old lady touch her head. Why did one person and one fox want to face me? Isn't this bullying an honest person? Chingue became even more well-behaved, motionless, like a sleepy kitten with narrowed eyes. He slightly raised the corners of his mouth, seeming to enjoy the affection of the elder Mito Uzumaki. But on the opposite side of Chingue, Sarutobi Hiruzen and Shimura Danzo glanced at each other subconsciously, and they could see each other's surprise in their eyes. Mito-sama, how could you show such an expression? For decades, Sarutobi Hiruzen's impression of Uzumaki Mito can be described as a mountain of mountains collapsing in front of him without changing his expression. He only shed tears when Senju Hashirama died. Since then, Uzumaki Mito has become the pillar of Konoha. He treats everything calmly and wisely. Even when Senju Tobirama died in battle, he quickly calmed down and supported Sarutobi Hiruzen to secure his position as Hokage. But today, Mito-sama made a rare mistake. Could it be that this boy has such an astonishing darkness buried in his heart that even Mito-sama was so shocked? Danzo Shimura's heart trembled, and a trace of complicated emotions flashed through his heart. Although Danzo Shimura muttered in his heart that Chingue was a problematic Uchiha, in fact, he really didn't see what was wrong with Chingue. If you want something but can't get it, you can only say that the grapes are sour because you can't eat them. But a trace of luck came to Shimura Danzo's heart again. His good qualities as the Hokage's assistant for many years allowed him to regulate his emotions very well. As expected of me, I have long seen that something is wrong with this kid. Hiruzen, this time, you are really finished. Shimura Danzo looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen with pity. This is no longer an ordinary person who doesn't understand people. Sarutobi Hiruzen also poured a lot of valuable resources into Chingue, and even went as far as to absorb Chingue into the circle of the Hokage. This serious mistake was enough for Shimura Danzo to knock Sarutobi Hiruzen down from the position of Hokage. In fact, there might even be no need for him to take action. Sarutobi Hiruzen himself would take the blame and resign. Sarutobi Hiruzen frowned tightly and murmured in his heart, no matter how good this kid Chingue is, he will not make Mito-sama lose his composure like this. It can only be because something bad has happened. It shouldn't be right. I have read Chingue's Will of Fire test paper, and Asuma and Chingue have also told me about what happened before. This child is an Uchiha who has the Will of Fire even more than Kaoru. In the flash of lightning, several rumors flashed through Sarutobi Hiruzen's mind. According to Anbu information, some Uchiha believe that Chingue is very similar to the former Uchiha Izuna, but he is very close to the Hokage family, which has attracted the dissatisfaction of many die-hards. Could it be that Chingue is really the character of Uchiha Izuna, and even he, the Hokage, has been deceived? Sarutobi Hiruzen's heart became more and more tense. Uchiha Izuna's cruelty and hypocrisy, Senju Tobirama told them as ghost stories when they were young, it was a childhood nightmare. Jiraiya, Orochimaru and Namikaze Minato in the back row all held their breaths at this moment. These astute people all realized that something big might happen today that would change the pattern of Konoha. Tsunade looked at Chingue and Uzumaki Mito worriedly. How could this happen? Just when she wanted to ask something out loud. At this time, threads of foam-like dense, crimson and malicious chakra surged out of Mito Uzumaki's body. This moment, all the ninjas present stood up suddenly, with incredible shock in their eyes. Sarutobi Hiruzen's back was instantly wet with cold sweat. Although he subconsciously assumed a fighting stance, he, who is known as a doctor of ninjutsu, didn't even know which seal to make at this time. What should we do to deal with a rampaging Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, and the Jinchuriki is still Mito Uzumaki? Under the control of Mito-sama, the Nine-Tails chakra was leaked for the first time. It's over, it's all over. Chingue, you have really caused a big disaster. Danzo Shimura was overjoyed. At this moment, he glanced vaguely at the people who dared not move, and his mind suddenly recalled that evening that he regretted for the rest of his life. Just a few seconds slower than Sarutobi Hiruzen, he missed the Hokage position he dreamed of. The shameless thief Hiruzen stole his dream. Obviously, Shimura Danzo did not know that Hokage had actually been appointed unofficially for a long time. But in his view now, especially when even Sarutobi Hiruzen was stunned at this moment, the situation was completely reversed. As long as he steps forward and kills Uchiha Chingue who made Master Mito go berserk, everything will be fine. Danzo Shimura laughed ferociously in his heart. Uchiha Chingsui, although I didn't get you, you will eventually become the step for me to step onto the position of Hokage. Next moment, Shimura Danzo threw himself at Chingsui with extremely neat movements, a sharp kunai flew out of his hand, and roared, I, Shimura Danzo, are the devils of the Uchiha clan who are born evil. Shimura Danzo exploded his potential to the maximum. This was a blow that contained his lifelong belief and obsession. It seems that as long as Chingsui is knocked down, the Hokage hat will be taken off from Sarutobi Hirazen's head by Uzumaki Mito the next moment and put on him. Danzo, don't act rashly. Hirazen Sarutobi was suddenly startled and shouted loudly. Danzo Shimura turned a deaf ear. I hesitated when I was young, but you also hesitated when you were old. So, it's time for me, the decisive one, to take over Konoha instead of you, the hesitant one, Hirazen. But at this moment, Uzumaki Mito suddenly turned his head and glanced at him. What kind of look is that? It was as if Kyuubi was standing in front of him, the terrifying giant beast roaring with unparalleled killing intent, venting the thousand-year hatred in his heart. This is Master Mito who is out of control. With the power of the Kyuubi, I will die if I get too close, right? Shimura Danzo began to hesitate again, and his movements became sluggish. Before he could make a decision in his mind, countless thick dark golden chains erupted from Uzumaki Mito's body, tightly tying up Shimura Danzo who was sprinting with a kunai. Immediately, Uzumaki Mito's eyes regained clarity in an instant, and the nine-tailed chakra that had escaped from his body returned to his body. Danzo, do you think I can't control the Kyuubi? That's right, I'm an old woman. It's normal not to be trusted by juniors. Uzumaki Mito looked at Shimura Danzo lying on the ground and said with a faint smile. But there was an inexplicable coldness in his tone, which made all the ninjas present tremble in their hearts. At this moment, although the chains binding Danzo had been taken back by Uzumaki Mito, his heart seemed to be locked. It seems like he did something wrong again. Shouldn't we be decisive? I'm fine, sit down. Mito Uzumaki waved his hand to signal everyone present to calm down, glanced at Danzo Shimura, and said slowly. Danzo, go back to your seat. As the Hokage assistant of Konoha, you have to think carefully about things. If you are so impetuous, you will cause trouble in the village. You still need to learn more from monkeys. Shimura Danzo lowered his head, not daring to look directly into Uzumaki Mito's eyes, but his nails were already dug into his palms, using this physical pain to relieve the pain in his heart, the bone-breaking pain. Why was it that even though I was decisive, I was still denied? Hirazen was obviously just stunned. What should I learn from him? Sarutobi Hirazen quickly adjusted his mentality and smiled gently. Mito-sama, you were ridiculous, but as a junior, I have always believed in your strength. At this moment, although Sarutobi Hirazen sounded nice, he was extremely happy in his heart. Fortunately, he was stunned and didn't even close the seal. Otherwise, wouldn't it also express his distrust of Mito-sama? Uzumaki Mito laughed and nodded with Sarutobi Hirazen. I'm old and no longer useful. Monkeys can still talk as well as they did when they were children. But her heart is still very useful. This old man is afraid that when he gets old, he will be considered a drag by the younger generations. The look he just stared at Danzo Shimura had the shadow of Kyuubi in it, but Mito Uzumaki himself was also dissatisfied with him. With that ferocious expression, what are you trying to do? Chingsui and I are so close. Are you going to deal with me first or this child? Uzumaki Mito glanced at Shimura Danzo dissatisfied, and then put on a smiling expression. I am indeed old, so the Kyuubi's chakra will occasionally be naughty. Uzumaki Mito took Chingsui's hand and patted it very hard. I have seen this child, he is a very good child. Sarutobi Hirazen breathed a long sigh of relief. His eyes regained their light, and the last trace of tension in his heart was eliminated. Chingsui cleared the level. Uzumaki Mito's approval is the gold standard of Konoha today, and it is much easier to use than him, the Hokage. Let me just say, I have a sharp vision. Chingsui, who has such a deep bond with asthma, can't be wrong. The corners of Sarutobi Hirazen's mouth were filled with an unstoppable smile, and in sharp contrast to him was Shimura Danzo, who kept his head lowered next to him. Hirazen, temporarily postpone the Nine Tails handover ceremony for 3 months. Uzumaki Mito took Chingsui's hand and said after thinking for a moment, I want to talk to this child. Today's meeting will be held here first. Everyone else should go back. After saying that, Uzumaki Mito slowly stood up, took Chingue's hand and walked into the inner room. She was not asking for Sarutobi Hiruzen's permission, but simply informing. Sarutobi Hiruzen blinked in confusion. He didn't quite understand the meaning of Uzumaki Mito's order, but he responded immediately and sensibly. I understand, Mito-sama. Sarutobi Hiruzen patted Shimura Danzo on the shoulder. Danzo, it's time for us to leave. There are still affairs in the village waiting for you, the Hokage's assistant, to help me handle it. Shimura Danzo suddenly shook off Sarutobi Hiruzen's hand. If this was not the residence of Uzumaki Mito, he would really curse. Dog Hiruzen, you have to be cheap and behave well, right? That's almost it. Jiraiya shook his head. What an interesting day. Namikaze Minato looked at Kushina with worry and walked to her side. The nine-tailed chakra erupted from Uzumaki Mito made Namikaze Minato very worried about Kushina's future, although he knew that Kushina was a strong girl. Orochimaru had a hint of inquiry in his eyes. Compared to Wood Escape, Orochimaru is no longer interested in the escape technique of the first-generation Hokage. But Chingue today aroused his interest. The Uchiha clan seems a bit interesting. And at this moment, in Uzumaki Mito's body, Ninetales was already furious like a mad dog, roaring fiercely. This kid is Uchiha Madara, he is the reincarnation of Uchiha Madara. I will never admit my mistake, I will never admit this feeling wrong, Uzumaki Mito, you believe me. Kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him. I didn't lie to you. You believe I didn't lie to you. He is definitely related to Uchiha Madara. He is either reincarnated or his son. Kyuubi roared like crazy, but Uzumaki Mito just looked at him like a monkey, with a very emotional expression. Kyuubi, I have been with you for decades, and you have been trying to confuse my heart. There have been a few times when you have almost shaken me. But as your opponent, I have to say why your lies are getting worse and worse. But what you said today, I am not mocking you, but you really want to make me laugh. As Uzumaki Mito spoke, he really smiled at Kyuubi. The smile was very sincere, without any trace of ridicule, as if he had simply heard a good joke. Happy. To confuse people, find a better reason. If this child is Uchiha Madara's son, then after Uzumaki Mito clearly senses Chingue's chakra, there can only be one possibility. Unless Chingue is the child of Uchiha Madara and Tobirama, and it has to be the kind that follows Tobirama. If that's really the case, Tobirama, you've gone a little too far. Uzumaki Mito thought about Kyuubi's outrageous bewitchment, his smile became more and more uncontrollable, and he laughed heartily, ha 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 ha. Since the death of Senju Hashirama, Uzumaki Mito, who serves as the nine-tailed Jinchuriki, has never smiled as happily as he does now. Uzumaki Mito even thought that if she could see her lover Senju Hashirama after death, she would definitely tell him the Kyuubi joke. The nine-tailed eyes were about to burst, and Uzumaki Mito's laughter sounded so harsh. At this moment, Kyuubi regretted extremely why he had been bewitching Mito Uzumaki for so many years. Only this time, it was telling the truth. Why don't you believe it, Uzumaki Mito? You believe me. In this laughter, Kyuubi gradually recalled the worst day in its life. Those were the days when it was treated like a dog. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.